process includes question sessions in Parliament to the President, the Deputy President, and the different ministers. Additionally, members of Parliament can step outside of Parliament and investigate the progress of projects set out by government departments. This can be done through oversight visits, taking Parliament to the people, or Local Government Week, amongst other programs. The Auditor General is also part of the oversight process, monitoring the expenditure of budget allocated to departments and projects. Parliament has the power under the law and the Constitution to summon anyone to appear before it to answer questions on the spending of public funds. Ministers and government officials are regularly called to appear before committees of Parliament on their work. Should the priorities of a project change and incur changes in the budget as well? For example, money allocated to a specific project is allocated to another where it is needed more urgently for social relief. The committees will follow those changes to ensure the funds are still accounted for and used for the intended purpose.
We have got what we call cooperative governance. In legislatures, in each and every legislation in South Africa, we call portfolio committees. But having portfolio committees, it does necessarily mean that when Parliament want to address a particular issue in a province, they can't do that. They can do that anytime, any date, as long as the planning and coordination and everything is done according to book. But it's not done in a way that will destabilize and disorganize the planning of provinces. That is why even provinces, when we're planning as national parliament, we'll always extend the invitation to them so that they understand the program. Many times in the past, we have seen the different municipalities being invited to come and account in parliament because there are some issues that are of challenge and want to see what's happening, including different departments. They are called to come, and like now the section 100 in Northwest, there's a legislature that is there, but the constitution is very clear about what can be done by a legislature. It's also very clear what can be done by a national parliament, and that will never be compromised. Everything that we do, we derive it from our own constitution that is guiding us as members of parliament.
Monitoring and evaluating the oversight process is a responsibility of each portfolio committee. And that's why continuity in these portfolio committees are so important. Because if you constantly change members in portfolio committees, it will mean that they don't really know without having been informed or reading what has happened as to what is going to take place. So that is crucial for the committee to follow whatever statement, commitment, or answer a minister says. Because it's the only way in which you can keep them accountable, based on what they have said and based on what they are doing.
Each of the two houses of Parliament, the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, establish parliamentary committees to facilitate oversight and monitor the government in terms of the Constitution. These committees are the engine rooms of Parliament's oversight and legislative work. Parliamentary committees scrutinize legislation, oversee government action, and interact with the public. To exercise oversight, parliamentary committees first consider the appropriate means for conducting oversight to cover all organs of state. The committee would either request a briefing from the organ of state or visit the organ of state for fact-finding, depending on the purpose of the oversight. The work of oversight committees can include study visits, involve physical inspections, conversing with community members and stakeholders, assessing the impact of delivery, and developing reports for adoption by committees that contain recommendations for the houses to consider. Committees often obtain first-hand knowledge from people engaged in the direct implementation of specific programs or who are directly responsible for service delivery. To evaluate the work of government from a broader perspective, committees may invite experts from outside government to provide background knowledge and analysis on relevant issues. Once the committee has gathered all the information it requires as part of its oversight process, it must report back to the respective house on matters referred to for consideration. In its report, the committee will state specific recommendations for the matter it has investigated. When a committee reports to the House for a formal consideration and the House adopts the committee report, it gives the recommendations the force of a formal House resolution pursuant to its constitutional function of conducting oversight. The House then also monitors executive compliance with these recommendations. Of course, matters cannot be ongoing indefinitely. When a department presents their annual performance plan, it has clear timelines. When Parliament or a committee adopts its own plan, it will have clear time frames and will align with the relevant department's timeline. By following these timelines, oversight by the committees can see when projects or spending have gone off course and call the relevant member of the executive to discuss why the project and budget has not met a specific target and what plans are set forth to address the issue. Oversight by committees sets out timelines to hold departments to account and ensure that the South African people get the service delivery they expect and rightly deserve from government.
It doesn't matter whether we come from, say, same party. We have got different responsibilities. You are implementing, I am doing oversight out of what you said you'll be implementing. And if you said you will be dealing with the Hollywood vacancy rate in your department, and we gave you clear recommendations that next month when we meet on this particular date, we don't want another acting arrangement. We want to see a department with people that are employed. And when we give you time frame, we're aware about the advert, the screening, the interviews. We are very realistic. And we have done our research as an institution that is doing oversight. But if you come back after 6 months, they are still telling us the old story. That is why sometimes it will be headline news and say members of a committee were not satisfied even about the explanation. Sometimes, many a times, of course, you won't even understand if you are not told that these members, they will speak one language when there are some challenges, condemning what is wrong and criticizing, of course, in a very fair way where they see there are some serious challenges, and if they're going to keep quiet, things are going to go haywire, and it's their responsibility as members of parliament. But sometimes there are some instances, of course, where you might feel that the criticism is not justified. Probably we're not realistic in terms of what we are expecting a department to do and a member of executive to do, and there will be those different voices.
The Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwana, will present the budget allocation for 2026 to Parliament on Wednesday, 25 February at 2 p.m. The budget speech follows the President's State of the Nation address, in which President Cyril Ramaphosa outlined the government's policy priorities and program of action for the year ahead. The budget sets out how government will fund these priorities within the constraints of available resources, balancing economic growth while supporting the most vulnerable in our society. During the speech, the Minister will outline government's key financial, economic, and social commitments, as well as planned expenditure priorities. He will also present a detailed spending plan, including proposals for revenue collection to fund government interventions. The Minister will introduce the Appropriation Bill and table the Division of Revenue Bill, which Parliament will process in the months ahead. The budget process remains one of Parliament's most critical tools for exercising oversight over the executive. Watch the budget speech live across Parliament's platforms from 2 p.m. on Wednesday, 25 February. Your Parliament, your voice, your future.
Dumelang, and a warm welcome to a special live build-up show on Parliament TV. We are live on DSTV channel 408, and you may join our conversation across all platforms using the handle at Parliament of RSA. Libitso la ka ke Tshepo Mori.
Igama lam ndinguThembi Nkosi Ngoma, and thank you for joining us on this pivotal day for South Africa. In just under 30 minutes at 2 o'clock this afternoon, the Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwana, will rise to the National Assembly to deliver the 2026 budget speech. The sitting is held at the Nivemeester Parking Dome in Parliament, right here in Cape Town.
Now, of course, the budget speech is more than just a financial statement. It is the government's annual report card and its blueprint for the year ahead. It sets out in hard numbers exactly how the state plans to fund the priorities outlined by President Cyril Ramaphosa in the State of the Nation address just over 2 weeks ago. Now, as the president noted, the aim is to translate economic indicators into a tangible improvement in the life of every South African.
Absolutely, Tsepo. And the backdrop to this year's speech is particularly fascinating. On one hand, there's a palpable sense of guarded optimism. We have seen 4 consecutive quarters of GDP growth. Inflation has moderated to lows not seen in 20 years. And for the first time in over 16 years, South Africa received a credit rating upgrade. The president himself stated that we are on the cusp of achieving rapid growth.
That is correct, Nkosi. There are positive tailwinds. The end of load shedding, improved efficiency at our ports, and the stability brought by the government of national unity are all contributing to renewed investor confidence. Now, Minister Godongwana is also in the enviable position of having some fiscal wind in his sails, with surging gold and platinum group metal prices and a primary budget surplus.
Well, however, as we've seen in our streets interviews in Cape Town, the view from the ground tells a more complex story. For millions of South Africans, this optimism hasn't yet translated into relief at the checkout counter or in their monthly budgets. The average cost of a household food basket is still over 5,300 rands.
And consumers.
Those are some of the perks that come with life TV, and consumers are drowning in the debt with total overdue balances reaching 212 billion. And there's a real concern about bracket creep, where inflation pushes into workers into higher tax brackets without them being any better off.
Of course, that's the key tension of the budget 2026, Thembi Nkosi. The minister must reassure the markets by capping debt, which is projected to stabilize by just under 78% of GDP, while also addressing the immediate final strain on households and the critical failures in service delivery, from crumbling municipal water infrastructure to failing rail lines. It's a high wire act balancing fiscal consolidation with the urgent need for social and economic relief.
And of course, this balancing act happens within a very specific legislative framework. Today, Minister Godongwana will table 3 crucial pieces of legislation, and Tsepo will briefly outline what those are for our viewers.
Certainly. Now, first, he will table the Division of Revenue Bill, which determines how funds are shared between the national, provincial, and local spheres of government. Secondly, is the fiscal framework, which sets out government's revenue, expenditure, and borrowing plans for the next 3 years. And thirdly, the Appropriations Bill, which provides the legal authority for government to withdraw money from the National Revenue Fund to pay for its programs. These bills will now be subjected to a rigorous months-long process of public comment and parliamentary scrutiny, including detailed budget votes in the weeks ahead.
And that's a process where Parliament plays its crucial oversight role, ensuring the executive is held accountable for every rand spent. And now to help us unpack all of these layers, the economic data, the political context, and the real world impact, we have an excellent lineup of guests over the next few minutes before 2 o'clock.
That's right, and we'll be joined by leading economists and analysts, including Mr. Alex Mabunda, the CEO of Ntingiso Consulting Group. We'll also speak to commissioners from the National Planning Commission about the long-term vision, and of course, even the chairperson of the Financial and Fiscal Commission about intergovernmental funding, and hopefully the chairpersons of finance cluster committees of Parliament about the legislative road ahead.
And of course, as we have mentioned, we'll be bringing you the voice of the people. Our teams have been out on the streets of Cape Town to hear what ordinary South Africans are hoping to hear from the Minister of Finance this afternoon. Their stories are a vital part of this national conversation.
So whether the minister's message is one of excitement or simply a steady as she goes reassurance of stability, we are here to provide the context, the analysis, and the facts that you need.
Now, the 2026 budget speech build-up continues right here on Parliament TV. But what does the budget process entail? Let's watch this short clip.
Processing of the budget is one of the most important oversight functions of Parliament. The budget reflects the choices that government has to make, and it is the tool it uses to achieve its economic and development goals. In the budget, government sets out what it's going to spend and the income it collects, which it needs to finance its expenditure. The government has to balance a wide range of legitimate demands with limited resources at its disposal. Budget oversight is intended to help government move forward to realize its goals by increasing government's accountability to its citizens. The budget process occurs over a period of about 18 months. The budget of any financial year undergoes a 4-stage process. The stages are drafting, planning and formulation, the legislative process, implementation, as well as auditing and assessment. Parliament and government departments plan the budget for months in advance for the following year, implementing the current budget while continuously monitoring it for delivery and compliance with policy, and evaluating and auditing the previous year's budget. During the legislative phase of the budget, the National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces, and the provincial legislatures debate budget votes with the involvement of interest groups and civil society, the media, and the general public. This is to ensure that they reflect national priorities and accommodate outcomes and actions required by the mid-term strategic framework. It is important to measure the effectiveness of public spending and the manner in which public resources are spent. The more immediate goals are to ensure that government budget priorities are consistent with the declared policy objectives and that the financial resources allocated to priority areas are spent fully and properly. However, a larger purpose of the budget process is to contribute to democracy through ensuring openness, transparency, and accountability for public resources.
A budget speech doesn't happen in a vacuum. It is the financial translation of a political vision. And that vision was laid out just under 2 weeks ago by President Cyril Ramaphosa during the State of the Nation address that was held on the 12th of February. Now, the president stood before the nation and made a series of commitments, promises, aimed directly at easing the burden on South African consumers who are feeling the squeeze from all sides. Now, he spoke of a new chapter of turning our economy towards inclusive growth. But of course, we still need to look at that because the minister is now has that responsibility to fund the visions and the commitments that the president made just last week. And this means that the minister is tasked with making a reality of those words that the president made, translate them into tangible relief and opportunity, and they must find an expression in hard numbers, of which we will hear Minister Godongwana present today in the Dome at 2 p.m. And of course, I am joined by Mr. Alex Mabunda, who is an economist and CEO of Dingiso Consulting Group. Mr. Mabunda, thank you so much for making the time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Mr. Mabunda, of course, you've been analyzing these cross currents very closely, right? In your view, what is the single most important message the minister needs to convey today to not only just reassure markets, but also to reassure the millions of South Africans who are hoping that something better will come from this budget?
Yeah, of course, indeed, as you said, the president came in last week and made some commitments. And we know some of the existential issues that are facing the country, whether it's unemployment, the high cost of living, deteriorating infrastructure, issues around municipalities, not functioning and not delivering the services. We've seen, for example, the water crisis lately. That's emerging. We've just come off a very terrible situation of load shedding.
Oh, yes.
So indeed, the country is looking forward to those promises now being turned into action. We always say in the business sector that show me your budget and I know your intentions. So indeed, the intentions have been made, and let's see whether whether those intentions do translate, into the policy statement or the budget policy statement, as it were. And of course, I think people will be looking at issues around, first and foremost, the big issue of VAT, whether we going back to that debate. The sentiment is that we're not going back there because of some of the improvements that we have seen as well, with more than expected collections from SARS, and some of the indicators showing that the initiatives to reduce spending have made or at least have resulted into some form of dividend. People will be looking at what the budget is going to say about initiatives to deal with the water issues, which has now become the new version of load shedding. There's also a sticking issue of tax brackets having not been adjusted for the past 2 years. So whatever increase that you will have gotten from your salary, it still gets eaten up, by the unadjusted tax budgets for inflation. So these are some of the issues that obviously, people will be looking to see whether there is some form of reliefs to consumers. Mr.
Mabunda, let's look at the macroeconomic picture and investor confidence, right? Now, as the minister takes the podium today, where does South Africa actually stand? Just give us your assessment of the triad of concerns. We have economic growth, we have investor confidence and affordability for the consumer. Are we generally at a turning point, or is this a fragile recovery moment that can easily be reversed?
Look, I think the tail end of your takes up the sentiment from our point of view. We've had a long period of a sub 1% economic growth. And I think for the first time we went just above 1%. The projection now is that we're going to go to about 1.5% of growth. We've had the removal from grey listing, which also now is boosting confidence. And also, we are now seeing the currency starting to improve against the dollar. And some of the big threats around tariffs, have now been alleviated, with numbers not responding to some of the initiatives that the US has been throwing threats into our economy with a 30% tariff. And we've seen also the courts in the US challenging that position. So in balance, we're beginning to see some sort of improvements, but those improvements are certainly not sufficient. We know that the 1.5% economic growth projection, or 1.4 if you like, depending on which projector you're looking at, it's not sufficient. We're still looking at that 4 to 6% real growth to support employment and the sort of fiscal consolidation that we're looking at. We're still paying over 20% of our income into debt servicing. Of course, there's a small improvement in terms of the fact that for the first time, our debt to GDP ratio is not going up, it's stabilizing at just under 78%, if you like. So if it was a graph, it would just be stabilizing. And now we want to see, you know, whether you're looking at up or down.
Yes.
But it has to go positive. But at the moment, we're at a plateau, which is a great improvement. I mean, it's like moving from a loss to, you know, break even.
To break even, yeah.
But now I want to see a profit position. I think there's a lot of areas that we still need to improve on. And I don't know if you want me to elaborate on those or maybe.
Please, go for it.
Yeah.
Please.
No, look, I mean, to get to the 4-6% growth, we need to accelerate the structural reforms in the various industries, whether it's the logistics industries. We need to make sure that the threat of water shedding does not materialize in a way that load shedding for energy has. But most importantly for this country, I think we have to appreciate that in an economy of 60 million people, where easily 40 to 50% of those people are outside the active economic net, it's not sustainable. So we need to certainly make sure that reforms to redistribute, you know, the economic participation are put in place. I saw that, you know, the president came in and SONA and spoke about the public procurement bill regulations, which have been stalling. And we understand that those regulations are also meant to make sure that the whole transformation agenda is effected in a way that makes sure that women, people with disabilities, and Black people in general begin to realize a much greater slice of the economy. And I think with those type of reforms is where you will start to see real growth. But if we just focus on the huge, you know, industrial undertakings, whether it's to ship more minerals to the ports, but with little economic activity internally, and with little consumer activity, will struggle to get to those type of numbers. So great, you know, signs of recovery, but a lot still needs to happen to get us to the sweet spot.
All right. Now, Mr. Mabunda, thank you so much. Obviously, our conversation will continue. To our viewers, please stay with us. We're having some technical problems here on Parliament TV. However, we are going to get that sorted as we await the budget speech that is set to go on in about 40 minutes, where Minister Godongwana will take to the podium in the Dome. Thank you so much.
Nandilindele ubana avule opportunity abantwana abangaphangeliyo youth. Sibaninzi, I think 90% wethu akaphangeli, uhleli phansi, ingahle avule imisebenzi at least abantwana abancinci bakwazi ukuziphangelelela. Enye ingase anyuse negrant yabantwana, because kunabantu abangathathi intweni abaxhomekeke kwigrant, ingase anyuse nakuyo nakubantu abangakwazi ukuzenzela nto i-disability, ingahlanyuse nakuyo abantu abangakwazi ukuzenzela nto abangakwazi uphangela, ingasanyuse naphaya. Nazi into endiyilindeleyo kumphathisi.
Into endibayelayo mna inye, ndibayela uba sinyusele igranti yobudala yethu. Eyam igranti enyuka isihla iphathwa by 2.3, 2.2, apha iqiniseko like 2.2, enye 100 andazi yaphi na. Ndibayela loo nto. Ndikuvule namathuba emisebenzi, abantwana bethu basebenzi. That's why bekhangela. Ngathi nxa uvula imisebenzi neefeme ezavalwa, noko sivule, noko ngabhetele. Ngabhetele kakhulu. Nale into ibonakalayo uba ikhaya iyenyuka nyhani. Ngibonela loo nto.
No, ngolesithathu xa kusohlula imali umphathiswa bendibawela mna ukuthi ngokunokwam imbono akwazi into yoba ngabana atshintshe mhlawumbi athobe imali kwicala lepetrol, diesel, akwazi uba mhlawumbi anganyusa kwicala lotywala, kwicala legrosari. Noko siyabetheka igrosari linyuka oko, so ingase isazama uthoba kwicala legrosari. Nalapha erenkini apho sisebenza khona sinamatikiti siqhuba ko-yellow lane, ingase at least akwazi usithobela at least amatikiti singabhalwa kakhulu, because ka ungaqhubanga ku-yellow lane awuzufumana mali. So uzawuhamba ungaqhubi ku-yellow lane then ke ngoku awuzufumana pay emlungwini. So ndicinga uba mna bangazama uthoba kwinto ezinjalo, ungazama uba bhetele enze amathuba omsebenzi ebantwini abangasebenziyo. Noba i-350 angaziyeka because akho mntu uyenzani i-350. So incinci 350 at least uba ngabana ngazama amathuba omsebenzi, abantu bakwazi usebenza bafumane imali bangahlali elokishini. Enkosi bekuhle.
Ngilapha eCape Town ngizosebenza, ngifuna umsebenzi but ngokwe-age anguthola umsebenzi, si-unemployed, siqhuba amatekisi. But ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi umphathiswa uMinister of Finance kungani eyikhathile imali yegrant singayifumani i-SRD grant. Yiloko engifuna ukwazi menze i-budget speech. Enkosi ngiyabonga.
Okay, igama lami ndingusera from Grabo. Into engathanda uba okay zingenziwa kufawunde like i-business zabantu abatsha, bave like i-ideas zabo, yeah, okanye babanike imisebenzi kwezi-learnership.
And welcome back to Parliament TV. Of course, this is the live coverage, build up to Mr. Enoch Godongwana before he takes the podium to deliver the budget speech for 2026. I'm still in conversation with Mr. Mabunda, and he's giving us an analysis and his perspective on some of the issues that the minister ought to address when he delivers that State of the Nation address just at 2 p.m. Mr. Mabunda, of course, we spoke about economic growth, right? And you spoke about how seemingly we've just plateaued, basically. We're on a break-even point. And probably that is why we're not even seeing that economic growth translating into employment. It's translating into businesses making more money and being able to employ more people, right? Beyond that, let's talk about the reforms that you were talking about and how you think that the government should adopt those reforms so that we get better economic growth. Beyond that, do you think the likes of, for example, the SRD grant, just like one of our the people on the clips had said, do you think the SRD grants and other grants are sustainable in ensuring economic growth going forward?
Look, of course, we can admit that the grants do certainly support spending. But, you know, in any business, if you spend without generating the income, then you are pushing yourself into the negative of an income statement. But having said that, we also appreciate, you know, the role that grant plays. I mean, there are people who are in destitute situations that, in as much as to me and you know, at 350 rands or 400 rands, depending on where it goes, it might not mean much, but to someone who has no other form of income, that can be meaningful. And I think, you know, the South African state is indeed perhaps the only state in the world, you know, that has that form of, you know, social net expansion. But having said that, we do need to concentrate and focus more on increasing our revenue generation.
Yes.
And it's just unfortunate that there's a relationship between, you know, the activities of your populace and the growth of the economy. So there is a sense by which we need to innovate, even around those grants, to make sure that in some way or the other, those grant recipients do, even in the most indirect way, contribute to economic growth. Are they sustainable? Look, I think we can say they're not, in a sense that currently, in order to accommodate those grants, we have to sacrifice quite a lot, you know, of other economic, investments of economic value.
Yes.
Our infrastructure has deteriorated to levels that are becoming so critical that beyond those, then is a tipping point.
Yeah.
And if you look at the amount of money that we're spending on those grants, and with my memory not serving me very well, I think it's in excess of 30 or so billion. And you look at the gap that we have in terms of our repairing our infrastructure and other areas that would have a much greater economic impact. You can then see that we, trading in a path that is not sustainable, but perhaps it's necessary under the circumstances.
Now, of course, there's data suggesting that we are entering 2026 with a 30-year high in investment confidence rating, right? Now, this is supported by commodities and, of course, the GNU stability. Now, yet, when it comes to fixed investment as a percentage of GDP, it still remains stuck, right, around 14%, far below the between 20 and 26%, which was envisioned. Now, what is causing this gap, Mr. Babunda, and between the sentiment and actual capital deployment? And what should we hear from the budget speech today that can bridge that?
Yeah, well, of course, sentiments are exactly that, right? They are sentiments.
Yes, of course.
But it's also reality. And at some point, you hope that the sentiment will, or at least the reality, will eventually meet the sentiment. And of course, there's also this lag, where when sentiment is positive, the actual dividend of that sentiment, is seen maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. Because when the sentiment is positive, that's where, investors start to open up their pockets, and start to make those investments. But you don't see them on the day of the sentiment. So it's really a great position that we're in now, high, a 20-year high on sentiment. But at least we should be realistic that the other indicators on the real side will have a lag effect and will only sort of catch up, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. I think what's critical is that we should be cognizant of that which, makes up the sentiment and make sure that we don't slip backwards. And of course, the whole initiatives around fiscal consolidation that we've had in the last at least 3 years, which has been very difficult because, government spending had to be reduced in order to start balancing up the books. Investors rather want to be sure that you are not going on a fiscal cliff where, for example, you can't afford, your debt. And so all of those things that we have had to go through a lot of pain to come to a point where, for example, if, as I said earlier, that for the first time, our debt to GDP ratio is going to stay, at the same level. And of course, the projection is that in the next 5 or so years, it's going to go down to about 60%. So if we don't slip back, the grey listing, those initiatives that SARB and the National Treasury and the banks have been undertaking to make sure that we satisfy the removal from that grey listing. We can't slip back on those matters. The reforms that we are undertaking in terms of the ports and the logistics, we can't slip back. We can't have this watershedding coming in. The initiatives to reform municipalities must come in and show some dividends. So at least we know what is it that we need to do, right? And we should just stick with that and do more. And that will not only maintain the sentiment, but it will hopefully increase its positivity and maybe accelerate, the rate at which then that sentiment translates into material dividends.
Now, earlier you spoke about the elephant in the room, VAT, right? And I think a lot of people are concentrating or putting more focus on that because of the events of what happened last year, right? Now, with that, we've seen tensions between parties within the Government of National Unity just last year over the tax policy. Now, given the opposition from both within and outside the GNU, how would you describe the socioeconomic and political context within which the minister stands to deliver the State of the Nation address now in 2026? And is this budget of unity or is it a budget of compromise in your perspective?
I mean, at least we can appreciate that, since that standoff, certainly between the two major parties in Parliament over the VAT issue, there has been some much greater, synergy in the GNU and much more stability and maybe less squabbles and fights, certainly in the public domain, than we would have had, in the nascent month of this government.
Yeah.
And I think the ruling party has also appreciated, that in as much as it remains the majority party in Parliament and in cabinet, they have to take care of the sentiment, of the other parties. And I think it was a hard lesson because the effect of the delay in the passing of budget has had a very big ripple effect, which, if you ask me, I will even argue that in terms of the economic growth, it would have had some sort of a half percentage point effect. So I think now heads have cooled down. Both sides appreciate that, certain squabbles don't benefit this economy. And I think we come here in a much more calmer political environment as far as the GNU is concerned. And so, is it a compromise? I think, yes, there's certainly some bit of compromise, but I think you can also appreciate that there are some also positive dividends coming from the revenue collections that shows some bit of surplus, which I think it's going to make the Minister of Finance relax a little bit. I think it would be agitating if he came here with a huge deficit and still knowing that they can't touch the sensitive topic of VAT. So I think in as much as political stability is concerned, and I think this is building into that sentiment that you spoke of, we are certainly on a positive, but we need to be vigilant.
Yes.
So.
Now, talking about that surplus, do you then still expect the minister to look for money elsewhere as well, perhaps through improved SARS enforcement and compliance rather than touching personal income tax or even VAT rates? Can we expect a no surprises type of approach when it comes to the tax front?
Yeah, look, of course, the expectation is that the minister is not going to surprise us in any big way. We know that the sin taxes, because no one argue against those. The sugar tax will probably go high.
Yes.
The reduced petrol price regime will open up a gap for bigger taxes on the fuel levy, and I think those are the areas that the minister will more likely be looking into to then continue to consolidate the fiscal position in terms of collections.
Now, of course, you spoke now about the full fuel prices and how that might even lead into fuel levies being increased, right? Now, let's turn to the South African household. We've seen data showing that the food basket prices has eased slightly, just slightly, right? And fuel prices have dropped. However, we also see price fatigue. Consumers are pushing back, switching brands and prioritizing affordability above all else. How much more wiggle room does a consumer have in South Africa? And does the budget need to either protect them or stimulate the demand that businesses so desperately need?
Yeah, I think the whole issue of tax brackets, comes to play. For 2 years, we have not had any meaningful adjustments, if any. And this is the opportunity now to adjust those brackets, to then make sure, or at least ensure that the consumers start to, realize the benefit of any inflationary increases that they would have had in their income. Unfortunately, any increase in the fuel levy would work against that position.
Yeah.
But in the overall, we also hope that that price stability that we are seeing, and then with the inflation now being pegged around 3%, in the medium term, that should start to improve the value of a household income, and also eventually start to see that consumer spending show some positivity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mabunda.
It's my greatest pleasure. Thank you.
And that was Mr. Mabunda sharing some of his insights with regards to the budget and some of what we can expect from Minister Godongwana as he takes the podium at around 2 o'clock today and delivers the budget speech for 2026. Stay tuned to Parliament TV.
My name is Thabo, my name is Mambane. My traditional name is Makiti, my name is Mambane. Ndakhulela endaweni yaseMpumalanga. Ngathwasa ndimncane around 11 years. So la kule industry now I'm turning 36 years. Now it's 2026. I'm turning 36 years. Since ngathwasa ndimncane 10 years. Uhulumende wethu esimthandayo singajabula ukuthi nathi abe khona isibonelelo asibonelela ngazo singebelaphi bendabuko, ikakhulukazi apha kunogogo abanye abadala abangasakwazi ukusebenza endumbeni, abangasakwazi ukwenzani, kodwa ke ufinyelele ukuthi abakafiki esigabeni sokuthi bangahola ipension. Kodwa ke labo gogo babe sibalimele because umsebenzi wethu sisebenza kakhulukazi siyaguca senzane amadolo abese ayalimala. So kube khona lokuncane lokubonelelwako labantu abadzala noma feel government wethu uhulumende uma angazama ukusakhela noma ngabe indzawo lefaka kungathiwa ngumtholampilo, which means a hospital or a clinic, lapho ke sizokwazi ukuthi sivukele nathi sazi ukuthi kunobantu abavukela kabazi. Ngamanye amathuba omsebenzi lawo ngabangela ukuthi thina singebelaphi bandabuko singahlali noma ngabe akungeni bantu eindumbini, because asisebenzi sihlalele ukubuka lokhu ukufika okuncane, and it's not that funa abantu sibakhoste imali eninzi, asithola imali because nabo abaphangeli abanye babo.
My name is Sweam Williams. I'm a film director and writer, and sometimes I perform as well. I'm the founder of a collective called the African Film DAO. The African Film DAO represents more than 200 filmmakers from across the continent. What we do is we empower filmmakers to utilize blockchain technology and new technologies such as AI to enhance the filmmaking process. I am also the founder of the Hollywood African Cinema Connection, which is a film festival in Cape Town showcasing exclusively African films. We are connected to the Hollywoodland DAO, which was founded by Terence Winter. Terence Winter is the writer of The Wolf of Wall Street and The Sopranos, writer and producer. So our festival connects African filmmakers to Hollywood mentorship. My company is called Holocene Films. We are a film production company. However, we also have a tech wing, Holocene Labs, which works with emerging technologies such as blockchain and AI. My expectations are that I would like to see the DTIC rebate reinstituted, although I'd like to see 50% of that money allocated to creating local IP. And like I said, that it doesn't need to take a rebate format. It could also be in the form of seed funding or equity investment into indigenous IP. With regards to the National Film and Video Foundation, I don't believe they need any more money than what they already have, to be honest. What I would like to see is stricter implementation of that funding process, better evaluation panels, and for them to actually be held to task in terms of their internal management structure.
Welcome back. You are still watching Parliament TV, but we are on the hour and we're expecting the Minister of Finance to deliver the budget speech, and the House is already in preparation of that. Let's cross over to the House.
Order, honorable members, can we please settle down? Order. We'd like to welcome in the House the President, Deputy President, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces and members of the NCOP whom we have invited as guests. We also want to recognize our leaders of political parties, leaders of business, leaders of civil society who are all with us here in the House. But most importantly, we also want to acknowledge members of civil society and their organization and communities who had various matches, but also reflections on their expectation on the budget. We do recognize them, even though they may not be in the House, and also our people at home. I see some members are looking at me with a smile, wanting me to recognize them individually. So all of you who have been smiling at me, I do see you and I recognize you. And I know here we've got students who are here representing their organizations and having expressed also their views that they think both in terms of education and the issues of young people, those will be catered for in the budget. So I want to recognize all of you and be happy this time that Minister of Finance and the Executive Mr. President who are here for Budget 101. I don't think there will be Budget 2.0 like we had last time. But we had agreed, Mr. President and Minister of Finance, that if today you are not ready, we were going to have a budget tabled with or without your agreement, because at the end of the day, Parliament passes the budget. So I will now ask to announce that the vacancy which occurred in the National Assembly owing to the resignation of Ms. T.G. Shiviti has been filled by the nomination of Ms. Zama Kanyase with effect from 24. Order, honorable members. This vacancy has been filled with effect from 24 February 2026. The member has made and subscribed the oath in the Speaker's office. I want to welcome Honorable Zama Kanyase, and if you can stand so that members can see you. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I will ask the Secretary to read the first and second orders.
Introduction, Appropriation Bill, and tabling of the Division of Revenue Bill. And Introduction, Special Appropriation 2025-26 Bill.
Thank you, the Honorable Minister of Finance.
Honorable Speaker, Tobot Didiza, Deputy Speaker Anneli Lotiat, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, Honorable Deputy President Paul Mashatile, Cabinet colleagues, the members of the Budget Council and the Budget Forum, Governor of the South African Reserve Bank, Lesesha Kganyago, Commissioner of the South African Revenue Service, Edward Kisbert, Chairperson of the Financial and Fiscal Commission, Patience Ndava, honorable members and fellow South Africans. I have the honor to table the following documents before this House: the 2026 Division of Revenue Bill, the 2026 Appropriation Bill, the 2025-26 Special Appropriation Bill, the 2026 Estimate of National Expenditure, the 2026 Budget Review, and this 2026 Budget Speech. Honorable members, we've reached the important turning point in the management of our public finances. 5 years ago, the outlook was stark. State capture had hollowed out critical institutions and weakened state-owned institutions. South Africa had been downgraded to junk status by the last of the three major credit ratings agencies in 2020. The devastation of the coronavirus pandemic, coupled with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, had dealt a blow to the global growth. And in 2023, the Financial Action Task Force had placed South Africa on its grey list. The warning lights were flashing. Public finances were under severe strain and growth had stalled. Faced with this crisis, we chose not to be defined by it. Instead, we turned it into a catalyst for change. We commit to a clear reform agenda and we committed to a clear reform agenda and a disciplined fiscal strategy built on three principles: stabilize debt, invest in infrastructure, and spend better. Today, that commitment has delivered tangible results. For the first time in 17 years, debt will stabilize and it will continue to fall in the coming years. The budget deficit has narrowed significantly, and the debt service costs are also falling. The world has taken notice. South Africa has been removed from the FATF grey list. We secured our first credit rating upgrade in 16 years, and borrowing costs have eased, creating space for growth and development. These are signals of restored credibility, of renewed resilience, and of a nation regaining its foot. The lesson is a simple but powerful one. Steady structural reform and responsible public finances are the bedrock of a prosperous and more inclusive South Africa. Honourable members, allow me to turn to the global and domestic economic outlook. The global economy is projected to grow by 3.3% in 2026, broadly in line with last year's outcome. Advanced economies are expected to grow moderately, while emerging markets will continue to anchor global momentum. India and sub-Saharan Africa in particular are forecast to grow more strongly, supported by resilient domestic demand. These developments are unfolding within an unprecedented global trade environment, characterized by persistent geopolitical tensions and shifting trade policies which are reshaping supply chains. In response, we need to diversify our trade portfolios and secure our markets, reduce vulnerabilities to external shocks, and position ourselves to benefit from the emerging global growth centers. On the domestic front, our growth outlook is steadily improving. We project real economic growth of 1.6% in 2026, an improvement from the 1.4% estimated in 2025. This improvement reflects the continued strengthening of economic performance from the second half of 2025. Over the medium term, growth is expected to average 1.8%, reaching 2% by 2028. Persistent logistics, bottlenecks, weak public infrastructure, and the recent outbreak of the foot and mouth disease continue to weigh on economic activity and pose risks to the outlook. In the light of this, rapid inclusive growth remains our only durable path forward. Our efforts to promote faster economic growth continue to revolve around 4 pillars. First, maintaining macroeconomic stability, implementing structural reforms, investing in growth-enhancing infrastructure, and build state capacity. These pillars are the foundation upon which inclusivity is built and how we ensure that growth is faster. Madam Speaker, a key facet of macroeconomic stability is prudent fiscal management that advances socio-economic obligations. Our fiscal strategy involves 4 features. A, support economic growth by accelerating public investment, improve the efficiency of public spending, improve the composition of spending by containing the public service wage bill while increasing capital investment, entrenching sustainable public finances with a principles-led fiscal anchor. We are already reaping the fruits of this strategy. The consolidated budget deficit has narrowed to 4.5% of GDP for 25-26, an improvement from 4.8% that we estimated in the 25 budget. The deficit falls to 4% in 26-27 and 3.1% the year after. Gross debt stabilizes a share of GDP in 25-26 at 78.9%. In 2026, it falls further to 77.3% of GDP and declines to 76% by 28-29. This slightly higher debt peak this year reflects weaker nominal GDP growth and our decision to take advantage of strong investor demand in domestic and global markets by increasing our issuance in 25-26. The main budget primary surplus for 25-26 reaches 0.9% of GDP. In the next financial year, it expands to 1.6% and then to 1.9% in 27-28. By 28-29, we see it reaching a 2.3%. Honorable Speaker, to sustain fiscal discipline, we intend to continue the engagement on fiscal anchors. We aim to introduce a proposal of a principle-based fiscal anchor in the medium-term budget policy statement after thorough consultation in Cabinet, Parliament, and with the public. Just as inflation targeting provided clarity and credibility to monetary policy, the fiscal anchor aims to entrench fiscal credibility. Madam Speaker, the structural reforms to lift growth we are implementing alongside the fiscal strategy reflect an understanding that the state should adjust to the needs of the national economy in a flexible way. Operation Vulindlela must be understood in this context. In terms of energy reforms, we are stabilizing electricity supply and building a competitive, reliable energy market. Regulatory reforms in this sector have unlocked significant private investment, accelerating generation capacity and driving the transition towards cleaner, reliable power. In logistics, we are dismantling bottlenecks in rail and ports that have throttled exports and raised the cost of doing business. Our intention is to bolster public-private investment in rail operations while retaining state ownership of the rail infrastructure. The objective is to move goods faster, cheaper, and more reliable. Reforms in local government include shifting to a performance-linked utility model for water and electricity services. This is aimed at strengthening financial sustainability, accountability, and transparency. Spatial and housing reforms focus on restructuring our cities to ensure that people have access to affordable housing located closer to centers of economic activity. This is a systematic effort to remove the structural blockages that have held back growth for many years. Madam Speaker, over the past 3 years, our tax system has demonstrated resilience despite slow economic growth. For 25-26, the gross tax revenue is revised upwards by 21.3 billion compared to the estimate in the 25 budget. Higher than expected net VAT, corporate income tax, and dividends tax collections improved the year-in-year outlook. As a result, government has decided to withdraw the 20 billion in tax increases provisionally included in the May 25 budget. The improved fiscal position allows us enough room to withdraw the proposed tax increases without putting fiscal sustainability or economic activity at risk. We are also proposing additional tax measures to ease financial burden on households and businesses by adjusting personal income tax brackets and rebates fully in line with inflation. Ndibuyisela imali back ezipokothweni zenu. Honest and in tax, ndinika nje imali back. Madam Speaker, our national savings and investment rate is far below the levels needed to truly create generational wealth and support local investment in the economy. To encourage South Africans to save more, we propose that the tax-free annual investment limit be increased from 36 to 46,000 per year. The limit to retirement fund deductions be raised from 350,000 to 430,000, allowing individuals to invest more each year on a tax-free basis. Madam Speaker, each year we ask South Africans to send in their tips for the budget. This year we got more than 1,200 citizens sent us their opinions and suggestions. Renette Oosthuizen, a small business owner from Gauteng, had this tip. Minister Godongwana, please increase the VAT registration threshold for small business to 2 million. The 1 million threshold has not kept pace with the cost of doing business, close quote. Renette, you'll be happy to know that in this budget, the compulsory VAT registration threshold increases from 1 million to 2.3 million. We are taking other measures to support small business. We are raising the capital gains tax exemption for the sale of small business for older persons from 1.8 to 2.7 million. This applies to small business worth 15 million instead of 10 million previously. It will enable small business owners to receive more tax relief when they sell their business. Madam Speaker, increases to certain taxes are unavoidable. That's the bad part of me. For 2026, excise duties on tobacco will unfortunately be increased in line with inflation. This includes excise duties on electronic nicotine and non-nicotine delivery system. As a result, a tax of 20 pack of cigarettes rises from 22.81 to 23.58. Pipe tobacco rises by 28 cents per 25 grams and cigarettes tobacco by 87 cents per 50 grams. Cigars rise by 4.56 per 23 grams. The excise on alcohol beverage also rises by inflation. As such, a 340 milliliter can of beer or cider increases by 8 cents. A 750 milliliter bottle of wine goes by 15 cents. A 750 million bottle of spirits will increase by 320. In terms of the fuel levy, the total increase will also be in line with inflation. The general fuel levy will go up by 9 cents per litre for petrol and 8 cents per litre for diesel. The carbon fuel levy will go up by 5 cents per litre for petrol and 6 cents for diesel. The road accident fund fuel levy will increase by 7 cents per litre. Honourable members, the strong revenue collection this year and the overall resilience of the tax administration reflects an efficient and agile tax administration, continually improving through targeted compliance initiative. However, the scourge of illicit trade represents a major threat to these hard-won gains. It threatens our economy, endangers consumers, and robs the fiscus of billions in revenue. The recent announcement by a major tobacco producer that will close its local operation is a stark reminder of the impact of illicit trade on the jobs and overall economy. The sophisticated and organized nature of illicit operations demands an intensive effort to curb this trade, secure prostitutions, and dismantle its supply chains. SARS has already intensified its efforts. It will also continue its joint operations with border management, the SAPS, and the Defence Force. I always improvise. Wait a little.
Order, honourable members, can the minister continue with his speech?
Yes, I'm just, this thing has failed me.
It's page 7, Minister. Page 7.
Order, honourable members, I know you are trying to help, but you should have raised it through the speaker. Thank you very much, Honourable Mawuja. Minister, you can proceed.
SARS has already intensified its efforts. It will also continue its joint operations with the Border Management Agency, the SAPS, and the Defence Force to stop the illicit trade in tobacco. I'm going to come back in later when I talk about the crime and peace and security. On the financial sector, Madam Speaker, National Treasury continues to work on ensuring that financial services customers are treated fairly and the sector operates optimally. One key issue is the more than 88 billion rand of unclaimed financial assets and benefits. Following recommendations from the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, National Treasury will introduce reforms to manage these unclaimed benefits through the creation of a central administrator responsible for record keeping and tracing. We will also shortly publish draft regulations under the Currency and Exchange Act to include crypto assets in our capital inflow management regime. Crypto assets will now be governed in the cross-border movement of capital framework, which will be complementary to regulations already in place to prevent use of crypto assets to launder money and commit fraud. The use of data and artificial intelligence has become a critical for the future development of economies worldwide. As such, data infrastructure should be considered as critical as electricity, ports, and transport networks. This year, we will explore options to help data centers and related infrastructure to expand this investment in South Africa and solidify our role as a regional hub for these technologies. One of the main policy objectives is to ensure that the financial sector supports regional integration and the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. National Treasury is easing restrictions on the cross-border flows of capital by enabling domestic asset managers to manage portfolios of foreign assets. This will improve competitiveness and allow South African to co-function as a hub for investment into the continent. National Treasury, working with the South African Reserve Bank, has prioritized modernizing the national payment system and innovation in digital finances. The payment ecosystem management has achieved its first milestone, and with the establishment of the payments utility, which was completed in November last year, with the establishment of Pay-in Corporation. Pay-in will provide open, shared digital payments infrastructure to support operational ability across various payment providers, serving as the main platform for high-value and retail transactions. In the budget in May 25, we made the statement that we will do everything possible to use savings arising or expenditure reviews to fund future projects. In other words, tax will be the last resort. Madam Speaker, in this context, in this budget last year, as we have said, we have kept that promise through our commitment to finding savings from unproductive expenditure, closing leakages and inefficiencies. I'm happy to announce that 12 billion in savings have been identified over the medium term. Targeted and responsible savings are not a once-off initiative. They will be an ongoing and entrenched part of the budget process going forward to weed out inefficiencies and low-performance programs. Every program and every allocation must demonstrate value, efficiency, and accountability. As part of this process, the public transport network grant has been scaled down by about 8.4 billion over the next 3 years. The grant has not improved access to public transport relative to the investment made. The grant will, however, continue to help cover indirect costs in cities that run business bus services. Enhanced targeting of social grants, authentication of beneficiaries to reduce fraud in the grant system will yield 3 billion of savings. The South African Social Security Agency has its biometric and income verification process resulted in nearly 35,000 grants being identified as incorrect, fraudulent, and therefore terminated. Honorable members, we are committed to improving access to many South Africans deserving and eligible for social support. Abuse of the system, however, will not be tolerated. The remaining savings from the TARS are reallocated to fund capacity in the judiciary, border management, defense, and state SAC. Madam Speaker, to secure the skills essential to modern economy, government is reforming the national skills ecosystem. The skills development levy paid by employers to fund sector education and training authorities or SETAs and the National Skills Fund have not yielded the outcomes we expected. We must improve how we equip individuals ready to enter the labor market. Beyond providing them a theoretical understanding, the government will explore ways to reorganize training by introducing a dual training skills acquisition system, while looking at how institutions with the capacity to train job seekers and graduates can tool them with artisanal skills. Turning to the spending priorities. The budget we're tabling this in for 26-27 will spend 2.67 trillion rand. This spending includes a proposed 5 billion in the contingency reserves to cater for disasters declared since the medium-term budget policy statement. In other words, the disasters that took place in January this year. Government spending remains highly distributive. The social wage accounts for more than 60% of non-interest spending over the medium term. Basic education, health, and social protection constitute 70.3% of the social wage in 26-27, providing support to 13.6 million school children, healthcare service to 84% of the population, social grants to 26.5 million beneficiaries. Coming to social grants, bendicinga ogogo ndizabanyusela kakhulu kodwa ndibanyuselanga ngolu hlobo bendicinga uba zabanyusela ngalo kulo nyaka, kodwa ndiyabanyusela, kodwa ndiyabahoya. Kodwa ndiyabahoya. Social grants are allocated 292.8 billion rand, enabling the following increases. The old age grant, disability grant, and care dependence grants rise by 80 rand in April 2026 to 2,400. The same applies to the War Veterans Grant, which increases by 80 rand to 2,420. The foster care grant goes up from 1.2 in April, a 40 rand increase, and to 1,300 in October, a 10 rand increase. Child support grant and grant in aid grant increased by 20 rand. The social relief of the state continues in the current form over this year. Let me clarify. The SRD is in the baseline of the budget. That's not in dispute. When we say continue, the president says it should be converted into a livelihood star. What we will be then be doing during the course of the year, between now and the next financial year, is to give content to that. What it's going to look like, what is being eligibility criteria, and so on and so on. So it does not dispute that it's not going to be in the system. On peace and security, Madam Speaker, the President in his State of the Nation announced the deployment of the Defence Force alongside police to fight illegal mining and terrorism. To support this and other efforts to intensify law and order, spending on peace and security increases from 268.2 billion in 25-26 to 291.2 billion in 28-29. Border Management Authority has been allocated an additional 990 million rand over the medium term to build capacity by filling 738 posts. 2.7 billion is added to defense over the medium term to improve operations, including maintaining the South African Air Force fighting capability. A quick question arises, and people was also asked this question in the media, about what about the additional deployment of the Defence Force? I'm saying the law acknowledges that the president may at any point in time deploy the armed forces. It doesn't say the president will first check whether there's a budget or something else. If there's war tomorrow, he can say, hey, just go and sit and have a budget. No, the war is going to send the army to go and fight. That's how these things work. then is for us to say, in the light of that, Section 16 of the Act of the PFMA considers that deployment as an emergency. We will be working with the Defence Force in this regard to finalize that. But in addition to this, we have given both the Defence Force and the police through the CARA Fund 1 billion each. 1 billion the police, 1 billion the Defence Force for crime prevention strategy. Over the medium term, 883 million is shifted from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to the Office of the Chief Justice. This will enable the Office of the Chief Justice to manage its own budget, enhance its independence from the executive from the 1st of April this year. Similar arrangements for the funding of Parliament are being undertaken in the spirit of separation of powers. In other words, Parliament itself must not rely on this executive for the performance of its functions. An additional 687 million has been allocated to increase capacity in the judiciary over the medium term. The President also announced the establishment of special courts. Once the costing is finalized, allocation for this will be considered later in the year. We have had a discussion with the judiciary insofar as this is concerned, together with the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, and examining how do we give effect to this injunction by the President. We have agreed on 3 phases. The first one is that there are courts that currently are under pressure, and we need to see how can we deal with that pressure. Secondly, we need to look at what does this mean, this establishment of this additional courts in terms of the number of judges, and how soon can we do that? And we have put up some technical teams with the Office of the Chief Justice to pursue this injunction by the President. There are also a number of commissions of inquiry which are taking place. Some of them have asked for an extension. We'll also be looking at how do we fund that extension over time. The special appropriation we're tabling before you of 8.5 billion today looks at 5.8 billion for PRASA rolling stock fleet renewal program. If I may explain to you, how does this thing work? PRASA has had a contract with Gibela. They've got to order a minimum of 35 locomotives per annum. If failure to order 35 is a breach of contract. So we've got to make sure that PRASA continues with its contractual obligations. We've got to pay for up subscription to the World Bank, which we have not been paying for a while, of about R1 billion. We are providing 700 million rand to the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. We are making this money to the department without earmarking it, because we want them. For now, while we are looking into the details of how we're going to fund the Centec Diet, the SABC, and the SAPO. They should be able to meet this through this flexibility. On the division of revenue, which is the division of revenue says how money between the different spheres of government is allocated. 48.9% of national rates revenue is allocated to national government, and 41.7% to the provinces, and 9.4% to local government. I must express this point, Mr. President, that although the quantum that goes to to municipalities is increasing, but as a percentage of the share, there's a decline from about 9.7 to 9.4. And I think it's something we need to be attentive. Translated into rands and cents, national gets 951 billion rand, provinces 810 billion rand, municipalities 182 billion rand. Additional allocation to provinces equitable shall include 348 million rand to progressively equalize grade R teacher pay, 340 million rand for early retirement and voluntary exit programs, 390 million rand for the Presidential Employment Initiative. 1.5 billion is added to provincial roads maintenance grant in the 26-27 to fund the carry-through costs of disaster that occurred between April 2024 and June 2025. Basic education. In terms of the consolidated expenditure, spending on education remains the largest component at 23.7% over the medium term. Basic education receives 22.7 billion for carry-through cost announced in May 2025. Early childhood development receives the majority of these funds. 9.9 billion supports employee compensation and other pressures in education. Early childhood, as I've said, development grant receives an additional 12.8 billion over the next 3 years, expanding services to an additional 300,000 children. This will also maintain the increase per child per day subsidy of 24 rand introduced in 25-26. The increased allocation aligned to the National School Nutrition Program to food inflation to continue to provide meals to over 9.9 million learners in almost 20,000 schools. In health and education, Madam Speaker, 26 billion rand is allocated to provide provinces to bolster our HIV/AIDS program, such as the prevention of mother-to-child transmission and the provision of antiretroviral drugs. That 26 billion. A part of the targeted responsibility and saving initiative, provinces will repurpose some of their funding. We've agreed on this with provinces. Some of their funding to meet the obligation towards the PEPFAR. This follows the funding withdrawal by the United States of America. 21.3 billion is allocated to health sector over the medium term for the compensation and employment of doctors and to make up for the shortfalls in goods and service expenditure. On local government, 86 billion is to support the provision of free basic services to 11 million households. Assuming, I'm making this assumption, assuming these 11.2 households are in the indigent register. If they are not, there's a challenge. Local government is the sphere where communities experience the state most directly. Yet, many municipalities are in financial and operational distress and therefore unable to deliver services as they should. Audit outcomes highlight this unacceptable reality. 63% of municipalities are in financial distress and the proportion of clean audits remains unacceptably low. A central challenge with municipality is that they not only differ in capacity, but also in their revenue-raising potential. This demands a more targeted approach to respond to the diverse pressures facing municipality. The National Treasury is vital in support for development of long-term financial plans. These plans will improve project identification, sustainable planning, cash flows, and inform financial decisions. This will negate the challenge of unfunded mandates and limited capacity to maintain infrastructure and sustain services. Further structural reforms are underway, including a comprehensive review of the local government fiscal framework, together with a comprehensive review of the local government work paper. Together, these reforms will modernize the intergovernmental system and build a more capable, resilient, and appropriate differentiated local government sphere. There's what we have called the metal trading system, which we have been raising in Parliament. Essentially what it means that we are incentivizing municipalities to treat their water services and their electricity utilities as business entities which should be run professionally. As a result, we are providing money for this purpose to incentivize municipalities, and we're providing about 27.7 billion. So, and another 164 billion. But let me just tell an important story. If you pay an electricity to a municipality, you are not paying an electricity bill outside the bill of the municipality. And if you are paying water, you are not paying outside the water separately. What are the side effects of this? Some effect of this. Johannesburg. They collect about 9 billion rand on water. But because it goes into the main port, what actually comes back into investment into the water, Johannesburg water, is R1 billion out of that 9 billion rand. The implications are services. There's no maintenance of the water system. I'm not saying that's the only problem with the water challenge we face. That's one minor problem. If we solve that problem, we can be able to fix leaks and so on. But it won't deal with the fundamental challenge, which is the infrastructure they are dealing with is old. A challenge we need to be discussing as government is how do we deal with that infrastructure. A second area I want to deal with on municipalities is the reform of the infrastructure grant system, municipal infrastructure grant system. Let me just again capture this thing by using an example. Capture this system by using an example. When in 2024, some municipalities had disaster and we provided them with money. In 2025, the same municipalities, there was disaster in the same municipalities. When we gave them the money in 2025, they had not used the 2024 money. Now, the point is, it's easy to say the money returns back to Treasury, but the effect of it is that the communities that have lost a bridge or something and still have that problem. So in this regard, the grant system will be reformed to make sure that we are going to provide the money to those institutions, even the district municipality or other accredited institutions, which will help those municipalities to provide the service. That's how this grant is going to be working. Now, coming to the infrastructure issues. Somebody says to me, what is this? Every day you talk about $1 trillion. Yes, because I'm announcing $1 trillion now. In the next outer year, I'll be adding another amount. It will still remain $1 trillion. So it's a rolling thing. How is this trillion broken down? 507 billion rand will be spent by state-owned companies and other public entities. All right? 217.8 billion rand by provinces and 205.7 billion by municipalities. Lastly, by sector, transport and logistics make up the largest share. Sandra will focus on strengthening long-term network resilience. This includes annual maintenance of approximately 27,000 kilometers and the resurfacing of 2,000 kilometers of road. PRASA, as I've indicated, continues to implement its corridor recovery program and modernize core infrastructure to rebuild reliable, affordable rail service for commuters. This will enable the increase in annual passenger trips from 77 million trips in 24-25 to between 250 and 450 million trips over the medium term. In energy, investment will focus on improving the security of supply and mobilize private sector investment. In the medium-term budget policy, we announced that National, together with the World Bank, are making significant progress with the credit guarantees vehicle. The credit guarantee vehicle, which will support massive investment in transmission infrastructure, will be incorporated as a company in the coming months. Next, we will expand. We expect development partners to confirm their capital participation. Thereafter, the credit guarantee vehicle will apply for a license from the Prudential Authority. We are targeting the credit guarantee vehicle to be operational later this year. In water, investment are directed towards high-impact bulk water augmentation schemes, refurbishing of aging infrastructure, and the completion of strategic projects that support economic nodes and agriculture and household supply. Honored members, we continue to implement reforms to unlock greater private sector participation, enhance spending efficiency, and shorten delivery timelines. On triple Ps, we have amended the triple regulations as we have indicated. There are about 63 projects now at different stages of development. Key amongst them are the 6 border posts that we have announced in time, which are ready to be announced towards the finalization towards the end of the financial of the year. Similar progress with the Gautrain is being made. A conclusion of this project will close major PP transaction in more than 5 years. On the budget facility for infrastructure, the budget facility for infrastructure has approved 21.9 billion for 5 major projects. These include Transnet's coal and iron ore corridor projects, which will restore rail capacity to 7 million tons for coal line and 60 million tons for the iron ore line, and the Polokwane Regional Water Waste Program. As part of the efforts to position infrastructure as an inevitable asset class, government issued an infrastructure bond in 2025, raising 11.5 billion to support the contribution of the BFI approved projects. The BFI call for proposal for 26-27 cycle opens today, Dr. Mzwaleti. What that means, both of those people who want to funding via the budget facility for infrastructure need to submit through the window which has been opened from today. We call on public institutions in key sectors of the economy to submit proposals with funding gaps and strategic value for consideration. This includes critical social infrastructure such as courts, correctional facilities. I know Dr. Groenewald has shown a keen interest in 2 specific prisons to be accommodated in this regard. These include also university infrastructure such as the University of Ekurhuleni. University of Ekurhuleni, I don't think is far from a realization, Mr. President. After your speech, I tried to dig into it and understand where it is. And it turns out the University of Ekurhuleni, there were 3 sites that were identified. There's 1 site which is proposed. All we need is the minister to go and visit the sites and make the approval. Once he has done that, according to the document, I'm learning, according to the document, all he needs to do is appoint a supervising university. Included in this project is going to be student accommodation. Again, I was talking to the minister, Mr. President, and said it's going to be difficult for me to teach a communist about decommodification of student accommodation, because that's essentially the proposal I was putting across to him. On the health front, Dr. Mtsoreti has been up and fighting with me in every budget about 3 specific hospitals: George Munkari Academic Hospital, Inkosi Albert Lutilo Hospital, and Nelson Mandela Hospital. These are the hospitals which will form part of the BFI in the next round. And they're quite important in 2 respects, because they are linked to academic institutions. And secondly, are a demonstration of our commitment that we want to prepare for the implementation of the National Health Insurance by improving the quality of our institutions. Madam Speaker, progressive realization of the fundamental socio-economic rights enshrined in our Constitution is essential to our mission to deal with inequality, poverty, and unemployment. It is a mission that demands that we make prudent fiscal choices. With the health of our public finances comes a great degree of economic freedom and sovereignty. It is this sovereignty that gradually frees us from over-reliance on external debt. It shields us from inherent uncertainties of global finance and global politics. As we have witnessed over the last few years, the established norms of global order can shift and be undermined. To achieve our ultimate goal of better the lives of our people, we must continue pursuing this sovereignty. A budget and a fiscal strategy that advances inclusive growth and the sustainability of public finances is a crucial part of achieving this greater freedom. It moves us closer to fulfilling our constitutional promise to do all that it takes for our people to live with a dignity and prosperity. Madam Speaker, I'm grateful to the President and the Deputy President for their support and leadership. Thank you to Deputy Ministers of Finance, Mr. Sharupain and Dr. Mason. Mr. Sharupain tells me that he wants also to be doctor. So he wants to do a PhD in fiscal rules. So he's going to compete with Masondo not to be the only doctor in the So I'm thankful to my deputy ministers, my director general and the team. My sincere thanks to the governor of the South African Reserve Bank. Let me thank my colleagues in the Ministers' Committee on the Budget and the Budget Council who have shared the task of difficult trade-offs that have to be made in the budget process. Similarly to the parliamentary committees of finance and appropriation, I express my sincere appreciation. And of course, to my dear wife who has made me so nice looking today. Even the president, I asked him today when he called me to the cabinet, I said, what is my business here, Mr. President? He said, no, we wanted to see how do you look like today. Madam Speaker, let me also take this opportunity to thank the Commissioner of SARS. The Commissioner of SARS, in order to have a better appreciation where is he?
Order, honorable members. Actually, the minister was asking the commissioner to stand up. But I am grateful that all of you gave the commissioner a standing ovation.
Yeah. The problem is the member didn't even allow to contextualize this thing, because it's quite important for when we thank the commissioner for the services done over 7 years, we've got to look at the kind of institution he inherited when he took over 7 years ago. It was an institution which was kind of hollowed out, not almost too close to non-functionality, to what the institution which the president in the State of the Nation address called one of the best institutions we've had. That's what the commissioner has done, and we thank him for that. And on behalf of government, I wish to express that unwavering support and thank you to them, because by the next budget, there'll probably be a new commissioner. That depends on the president. There'll probably be a new commissioner of that. So I also thank every South African. The budget reflects our shared journey and the belief that together we can build more equally, more prosperous economy. Yakuqala kaChalbongo ikwekwenge. Ngamachaba namabhongo kaChalbongo ke lawo, enkosi.
Mamchawe. Order.
Yibo.
Order. Can we be seated? Thank you very much, Minister of Finance, for the presentation of the budget and the tabling of the budget instruments, which will now be referred to the appropriate committees for their consideration, and they will come back to the House. Minister, I'm sure you forgot one last sentence of thanking people. I want to thank all these members of parliament who last year, despite the challenges of having 2.1, 3 point something, but they managed, worked hard, particularly our committees on finance and appropriation, to make sure that in July we were able to pass the budget. It wasn't an easy year, but I think these members of parliament lived up to the task at hand. Thank you very much to all the honorable members. I will now ask members to stand and wait for the presiding officer and the maids to leave the House, and that concludes the business for the day.
Welcome back. You're still watching Parliament TV, and we're coming to you live on channel 408. And of course, the Minister of Finance has just delivered the budget speech for the 2026 financial year. Of course, we know that speech is motivated by the President's State of the Nation address, which was delivered on the 12th of February. I think when we explained here on Parliament TV, we said the President will outline the programs of government for the year, and then we'll have today the Minister putting up finances on the programs that had been announced by the President. And just to look at some of what the Minister had to say, he spoke strongly on issues of revenue and tax changes, also announcing some relief measures, where we see that the 20 billion in proposed tax has now, the increases has been withdrawn. He also spoke on personal income brackets, which have been fully adjusted for inflation. But another thing that he spoke to when he talked on the sin tax was the increase, firstly in cigarettes, which I highly welcome, because the cigarette pack will now move from 22, has been increased from 22 rand 81 cents to 23 rand 58 cents per pack. And also the beer goes up with 8 cents. The wine goes up with 15 cents, and the spirits go up with 3.20 rand. And of course, fuel levies increase will be in line with the inflation.
Now, of course, the minister had to focus on social spending. And what does that mean for you as a South African that is a beneficiary of the social grant system? And that means that for the old age and disability grants, you have plus 80 rands more, which means that you will have 2,400 rand. And for the child support grant, that has increased by 20 rand, bringing it to 580. The SRD grant continues in its current form. Now, of course, when we talk about education, which is very important since we had the Bella Act enacted as well, there is a 23.7% of total expenditure. And when it comes to ECD, the expansion for 300,000 additional children. And of course, the school nutrition program, which is now aligned to food inflation, which a lot of children in impoverished communities depend on.
And Sabo, as you would have seen in our build-up, I had an opportunity to speak to a Mamumamgwevu from Lang, and she had called for the minister to put an increase in the pensioners' social grants. So I'm sure she will be happy when I visit her this afternoon to give her a feedback on what the minister had said in relation to the social grants. Now, another issue that the minister spoke to was the issue of peace, security, and governance. And you know, if you remember very well, when the president addressed the nation, he had indicated that there will be deployment of soldiers in crime-ridden areas, provinces such as the Western Cape, Gauteng, to deal with issues of illegal mining, and later announcing that Eastern Cape will also benefit from the deployment of soldiers. So for 2026, 2027, 27, 28, 28, 29, the minister has put aside 291.2 billion just to make sure that those announcements that were made by the president are funded. And this funding will assist with policing, it will assist with the deployment of the South African National Defence Force, as I've indicated. It will also assist even with Border Management Authority, as well as the Office of the Chief Justice.
Now, of course, in a nation address, the president did highlight the importance of capacitating municipalities. As we know, we have infrastructure that is dilapidating, and service delivery is quite questionable when we look at our different communities. Of course, the budget had to speak to that in terms of local government reform, and the minister announced that 63% of municipalities are in financial distress. And of course, there will be a new performance-linked funding model when it comes to local municipalities. Furthermore, 27.7 billion rand has been allocated for metro trading services reform. And of course, when it comes to municipal infrastructure grant, there will be a reform there in terms of the direct versus the indirect delivery model. Of course, the term there that the minister used was a strong accountability push, just as we had from the president's commitment when he delivered the State of the Nation address.
There are many more commitments that had been made by the Minister of Finance, but if you want to access the full speech, you can go to www.parliament.gov.za. It is also available on www.treasury.gov.za. You should be able to get a full speech there to read for yourself.
And of course, for Parliament, it means that the work starts now within the committees that will hold the various departments accountable in terms of the money that has been allocated, ensuring that every cent goes to its deserved course. Sure. And of course, you can watch all those engagements right here on Parliament TV and on our YouTube channel, and also engage with us at Parliament of RSA. It is, of course, your Parliament, your voice, your future.
Kamalam, and from me, it's a goodbye.
Like Alivite Ketepomori, and from ourselves and the team behind the scenes. Bye-bye.
Morning, honorable members. The time is now 9 o'clock, which is the scheduled time.
Recording in progress.
Meeting. I just check from the committee support if we've got the required numbers to proceed, and that those that are to lead us on presentation are on the platform.
Morning, Chair. Yes, Chair, we've got enough members to can start the meeting. And Ms. Nomfundo Sonjika from the International Relations Parliament Division is on the platform, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Greetings, honorable members. Let me also then greet the delegation from the IR unit of Parliament, the committee support, as well as South Africans who may be following us on the platforms created by Parliament. As we open the meeting, let's just deal with the formalities just to help us conduct our meeting accordingly. Honorable members and all participants on the platform, we are just reminded that Parliament has got rules in terms of virtual meetings. But in addition to that, this being the meeting of the Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labour in the National Assembly, the rules of the National Assembly as pertaining to committees also apply. All members and participants on the platform are reminded that at all times to mute your mic and mute your video camera until at the time when you're recognized by the chairperson. And that score will then proceed to unmute your mic and switch on your video camera as you proceed to speak. In a situation where you experience connectivity challenges, you will then indicate for the permission of the chairperson to mute your video camera so as to maximize your bandwidth. Of course, from time to time, there may be those that lose connectivity and have to reconnect to the platform. Please ensure at all times as you reconnect that your video camera is muted, your mic is also muted, as mics are sensitive and could therefore pick up background sounds that could disrupt the meeting. Honorable members, the rules makes provision for point of orders. You are also advised that you have to raise your hand using your gadget for the chairperson to recognize your hand. In a situation where the chair is unable to see your hand, committee support will also assist the chair in identifying the hand. Only at that point, when recognized by the chair, that you'd proceed to unmute your mic and video camera and raise the point of order on which the chairperson could rule upon in terms of the rules. I further advise not to raise unnecessary point of orders to a point where the meeting collapses on this platform. Having clarified those honorable members as basics for us to have a meeting, we will then proceed as we had confirmation that we can start the meeting. We have got required numbers. Can I also then move quickly committee support and check if there are apologies that have been received on your side?
Chair, there has been no apology that I received from my side, Chair. Thank you.
And committee support, may I just check from members if there are any apologies to register? Doesn't seem like we have. With that having been raised, honorable members, I'll take it that then we are good to go. Let me just as a way of getting to guide on the part of the agenda, just a few things to raise, honorable members, so that the context is understood. Is that we are aware that in terms of our program, we would have set up specific meetings, of which today in the original program were to have an economist who also speaks on the SONA, the department itself, as well as, of course, take up the minutes and so on. And that the following week, we're going to have a study tour, meaning that we didn't schedule items for next week because of that. Of course, with the changes with regard to the study tour, which you've already got communication on, taking it to March, it therefore says that we'll have to revise the program and get some of the items even earlier, so as to make sure that on that week, which was set to be a committee week, we do not have any meeting that's outstanding in that regard. So that's the first point. The second point, with regard to the department itself, I'm sure it's something that you yourselves would have also noticed with the documentation you received, is that you had more of the general points, whereas you would expect that there will also be a sense of what resources get to be committed for particular announcements that would have been made. And that could have not been possible until the budget statement is dealt with by both Treasury but also at a departmental level. And therefore would have then agreed that moves until we have that, so that we don't make general statements that will not be able to monitor. So we need to know the commitments. For example, if you talk to the topical matter of the 10,000 labor inspectors that must be employed over and above the project 20,000 that was working on interns, you'll still need to know from a resource point of view whether this is achievable within a financial year or it is a matter that's spread over, so that your communication also is backed by resources that are made available. So we took that into account, and of course there was agreement with the ministry that would want to really deal with specifics than the statement that is quite general. So that will then still come, honorable members. As we know, this afternoon the Minister of Finance will be addressing the House on these matters of finances. So I just thought I should make that clarity. And then we just thought that instead of getting the day gone, because as part of the study tour, there are preparations that get to be done and that we can use on the basis of availability of the IR unit, that they come before the committee, take us through those protocols as it relates to us going out of the country, representing the country that way. Of course, I do know that probably other members, based on the other committees, may have already gone through this, but it gets to be important to make sure that all of us have the same understanding of what is the expectation, have the opportunity to ask clarity questions, and be ready at the time that we need to get ready. Of course, we will then after that take minutes, and after the minutes we'll just get a brief update again from those that are logistically working on the part of the study tour, if there's anything to update members on in that score. So it doesn't have to be a very long meeting. We should be able to conclude well on time and allow members to prepare themselves for the House sitting this afternoon. So I just thought I should make this point right in the beginning, so that we know how we are proceeding going forward and what led us to be where we are at this point. Honorable members, having said that, as I said, we'll start with that briefing. The minutes, we'll do them later. I know that maybe some of you may have got it earlier, but on my side, I got it this morning, the part about the brief presentation. But we'll allow them to take us through in a proper sense, because we have not all had an opportunity to look at it, short as it is, but take us through. So I was told, as you heard, that it's Ms. Sonjita who would then be taking us through, and the team, and I'm sure should also use the opportunity to introduce other team members if they are all on the platform. So I would then, without waste of time, get to that point. I hope I am still audible even to you, Ms. Sonjita, and when you are ready, you can as well come through. Thank you. Please feel welcomed.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to all the members of the committee and colleagues. I've asked Zolani to bring the presentation, which is going to be very brief, and I'll be guided by the meeting after I've done the presentation in terms of the questions and comments. Zolani, if you may kindly bring the presentation. It goes straight to page 1 under definitions. Thank you very much. I saw it necessary to start with the basic principles of protocol. Could I kindly maybe stop the video so that it's better? Sometimes with the video, it gets to be a problem. I will switch off the video and audio. Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you. All right. The first issue is protocol is recognized globally as official procedures or a system of rules and guidelines governing affairs of the state, be it in parliament, in the executive or judiciary. All organs of state, they do use protocol as a guideline. It is regarded as also a guideline to facilitate diplomatic occasions. In this case, it would be the visit of the committee to Brazil, interacting with your counterparts, which is other members of parliament, and any other entities that you have identified. It is a common understanding that official business of the state is conducted and gives structure to any potential ceremony that may be arranged for you while you are there. For an example, you may be laying a wreath, maybe there's a significant historic site, depending on your host, what they have planned for your program. You will be engaged in formal bilateral meetings because you are interacting with your counterparts. And in some instances, it is with multilateral interactions where you attend your international conferences. And the next focus is going to be on etiquette. I know that there is a thin line between protocol and etiquette. Protocol being more the formal stately interaction, but etiquette, I'm sure all of us, which is the next slide, Zolan, which is more your conduct, where you are expected to be polite socially when you interact with any other human being. It is also guided by a set of norms and personal behavior. And I think this one, we all appreciate it as we conduct relations, be it socially, in our communities, churches, political parties, parliament, etc. And then the next slide. Okay. Maybe just for the benefit of the committee in terms of support, we are a division in Parliament, and the role that I play, I am the section manager that deals with protocol and ceremonial issues. I also deal with relationships issues, which is, for instance, a relationship between South Africa and Brazil, or China and Brazil, or Uganda, etc. So we deal that. So we do exist to either advise the committee, and it is our pleasure to come and share whatever information that we have at our disposal to ensure efficient support to the committee as you prepare to visit Brazil. I will go to the next slide. Okay. I thought as much as the focus today is on protocol, but I think the protocol is but one way of facilitating diplomacy globally. And in this Brazil, and there are specific issues that I thought maybe I should highlight, as much as my scope is not going to be more on content. However, it is important for the committee to note that we've got strong relations with Brazil, which are very historic because they started way back as early as 1948, pre our democratic dispensation, South Africa. And in the South context, which is our focus when we engage with Brazil, I must say that the two countries share membership in various multilateral platforms. We are all familiar with the BRICS at the level of government, and at the level of parliament, we are interacting in the BRICS Parliamentary Forum. We also meet with Brazil in multilateral such as your G20, United Nations, and in the level of parliament, we also interact in the Interparliamentary Union, fondly known as the IPU. I felt it necessary to highlight the 4 areas which connect the two countries at all levels, be it parliament or government. One is our economic and trade relations. It is to be noted that Brazil is our largest trading partner in the Latin America geopolitical region, while South Africa is recognized strongly by Brazil as a key partner, not only for South Africa, but for our continent, the beautiful Africa. The second area is the strategic cooperation, which is in various areas such as defense, security, science and technology, as well as agriculture. I want the committee to know that most recently, which is last year, 2025, there was a memorandum of intent, if you wish, of cooperation between the two countries, which focuses more on strengthening our agricultural cooperation and trade facilitation, which is very important. At the third level, which is what guides the relationships in all other areas, and the facilitation of closer relationship. I think I indicated in my opening remarks that as early as 1948, we already were in contact with Brazil, but the most strategic partner in our democratic dispensation was consolidated and revived in 2010. It is to be noted that in various multilateral platforms, UN, Interparliamentary Union, which is the IPU, etc., we normally have and share, common positions with Brazil. So it's easy. We are like-minded, and we see things from the same perspective in most instances. And it's a country where we would have any varying views, but still we're able to engage at a bilateral level so that we can strategize and clarify issues. So we have sound relations in that regard. I must say that there's also been a lot of visits between the two countries. I noted in the DERCO briefing, I think it's about a month ago, that most of our former presidents have been from our late President Mandela, former President Mbeki, former President Zuma, our current President, President Ramaphosa. They've been visiting Brazil, and we've received reciprocal visits from the heads of state from Brazil. From the side of Parliament, I know various committees have visited Brazil, and Brazil committees have been to a Parliament, but I would like the committee to know that officially the former Speaker of the National Assembly, Uma Mubaleka Mete, visited Brazil, I think in 2008, which is immediately after we had hosted the 118th IPU. That is because of the close relationship that we had. And at the time, one of the key objectives was to consolidate the establishment of IPSA at the time, and later we had the BRICS. Last but not least, we do engage on people-to-people partnership, which is more on your arts, culture issues, sports. We do engage at that level, and to facilitate the closer relationship, it was felt necessary to have direct flights between Sao Paulo, and which is the capital, and Johannesburg through OR Tambo. And that was meant to ensure that it is comfortable for delegations and peoples of the two countries to move in between. Thank you. I'll move to the next slide. Okay. This slide focuses on the parliamentary system, which is relevant for the committee to note. The parliament is same as ours. It's a bicameral system, and it has got two houses. The name of the parliament is called Congresso Nacional, meaning it is the National Congress in essence. The first house is the Chamber of Deputies, which is the equivalent of our National Assembly in our case. It has got 513 deputies, which is members of parliament in other words. We've noted that through checking on the IPU website that covers all the parliament that are members of the IPU, so officially it's data that is credible. It notes that there are only 88 women MPs, which is about 17.2%. And it is important to note that there is no woman that has ever occupied a speaker's position in their National Assembly. The term is 4 years, but please note that the speaker's term is only 2 years. And last but not least is the Federal Senate, which is the equivalent of the National Council of Provinces. It has 81 MPs, and there are only 15 women MPs. As I indicated, the term of this has got 4 years. Interestingly, the NSOP equivalent, which is the Federal Senate, the term is said to be 8 years. However, there are changes, renewable members every 2 years. Thank you. Go to the next slide, please. Okay. Just as a summary of what members should be expecting as you land in Brazil, in terms of the protocol, in terms of the culture and etiquette, because those three are interlinked. I've tried to categorize it briefly into 3 areas. The first area being greetings and personal interactions. I must say that the Brazilian nation is known for being friendly and warm. They secondly, when you meet them for the first time, do not be shocked. They will give you a very firm handshake, or a hug, or a kiss on the cheek is to be expected. It's very common with the president. As much as I haven't been there, but I've been interacting with them in the country. So the third area with them, eye contact is very important, because they love people. They're very warm, so they look you in the eye, and they do accept that as a way of showing respect to you and vis-a-vis. Kindly take your business cards along because you'll be meeting different people. So it's good for networking and that you exchange your business cards. And we're done with the first column. The middle column is about dining and visiting people. I am not certain how the program is going to unfold, honorable members. You may get an invitation maybe to one of the homes in Brazil. However, when you are invited to a home, it is polite to take a small gift, whether you'll take flowers or you'll take chocolates, whatever the case might be, any other gift that you deem suitable. The second area is when you're invited to a business setting, meaning a meeting, courtesy call, etc. Please carry some gifts. I will engage with the committee support team just to guide as to what would be suitable once we get the full program so that we can advise as IR and protocol what this would be suitable from your leaders of delegation to any other CEOs of entities that you'll be meeting. The third bullet talks to during your meals. Please feel free. If the food was good, you say the food was very good. Brazilians love that compliment. They love to hear that. When the opportunity, of course, presents itself to your host as you do your thank you remarks, etc. Last but not least, I think in South Africa, we do the same. We avoid starting to eat before our host has eaten. The third part is language and communication, and the official language in Brazil is Portuguese. And two, need to avoid making negative remarks about the Brazilian nation. That's where your diplomacy and etiquette comes in, and I think our honorable members are very familiar with this part. We're just highlighting it as it's part of the presentation. The third bullet is engage professionally and with politeness, which is the nature of business etiquette globally. It's an accepted practice, and for the decorum of any state and parliament, we know that our members do not need to be reminded about this one as well, but we're just indicating it, and it forms part of the protocol and etiquette. The last one is, it is to be noted that Brazil official language, as indicated earlier, is Portuguese, not Spanish. So they do take offense. They'll be polite, but they're not comfortable if you continue to use Spanish, but because they are not Spanish. So they take pride in their Portuguese identity, which is their language of choice. I'll go to the next slide. Almost done, honorable member. Okay, I thought it's small things, but big things. There are three things that I thought when you travel to a specific country, it's very important to note. Please note that when you get to Brazil in March, you will be experiencing their transition from summer to autumn. And the temperatures are very high, slightly different from ours. It is hot yet humid, more like your tropical, like Durban kind of a humidity, but it may be more. The third one, there may be showers of rain in the afternoons. Encourage you to pack a balanced, they say from the embassy, you must pack light clothing and a trench coat where possible, because it may be raining, or you carry your small umbrella, etc. But I would say, as a word of advice, it's always important when you travel globally. I'm not a climate change person, but I've learned from experience that weather does change, even here in the country. So just try and have not a lot of warm things, but have something warm in an event. The weather may surprise you once you land in Brazil. And the last point, in terms of it's not weather related, but we've included it under weather, that you may see people dressed in their kind of religious garments, because your visit coincides with the Holy Week, which is called the Semana Santa. The second area is the currency. Their currency is real. For instance, currently the currency conversion indicated that 1,000 rand, which is South African rands, ZAR, would be 325 Brazilian real. So just note that as you deal with your SAT daily allowances, just be cognizant, and as you'll be investing in the economy of Brazil, going to the market, going to the mall, etc., once the opportunity prevails itself. They've got a banking system that is digitalized, the same as South Africa. They've got ATMs, so if you do not prefer to change your currency in South Africa before you depart, you may then use your card to pay. And then if you need to go to the markets where you'll have to use cash, we will request the embassy to guide us on that one once we get the full program, so that you have a sense of more or less how much money you may need to withdraw. Word of advice, don't withdraw a lot of local currency in Brazil, because you may have to again, change that currency back to your rands. The last part, which is very important, I know we all battle with the plugs. When you get there, you want to charge your phone, but a 2-pin is acceptable. You will be able to do it. Those people who have the 3-pin plug is also acceptable. I think I have come to the end of the presentation. Take us to the last bullet, Putzolani. Oh, okay. Just as a way of just showing the members that the information that we have, we've made reference from documents that we have from our Chief of State Protocol that leads us in all areas, Parliament, government, and as well as the judiciary. We've used the Government Gazette because our protocol guidelines are there. We've used our parliamentary protocol precedents. What have we done with Brazil before? And policies, regulations. Sometimes these are ad hoc. And then we've looked under international best practices, which is what we do regularly. We are guided in terms of protocol and etiquette by the Vienna Convention that guides us as nations as to what to follow. Last but not least, I've been making mention of the Interparliamentary Union website that captures information about all the member parliaments that are affiliated to the IPU. I think I've come to the end of my presentation. The last slide should be saying the end. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Sonjika. I will now allow, if there are members who would want to comment or get clarities, that's the time now. And so that we are able, once those clarities are given, to release Ms. Sonjika in that way. Any takers? It's quite clear. Honorable Kopani. I see Honorable Mukwele, your mic is on. I take it that you wanted to indicate, or it is just an error. But let me take Honorable Kopani first, then Honorable Slepe.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Good morning to you and the meeting. All protocol observed, but because we give precedence to our chair, if I've greeted the chair, I covered everyone. Chairperson, I'm covered with the issue of protocol and etiquette, and also appreciate the issues of weather conditions that we expect to meet in Brazil. Now, my one and only matter is that if perhaps the committee can highlight the kind of terrain that will be exposed to and the types of shoes that we need to wear. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Honorable Ngopane, Honorable Slepe, they are recognized to be followed by
Thank you very much. Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, support staff. No, Chairperson, thank you very much. Now, let me first comment the way Brazilian they conduct their welcoming. I like the fact that they are hugging and kissing. Hey, that one I think is a good conduct. We need to practice here as well. It's a very good thing. It's very harmonious. I think we need to start practicing it. I don't know, like us, Vietnam, how are they going to do that? But I like that one. It's a good spirit. So, person on the light-hand one. I want just to comment the fact that this is our first study tour as the committee in this financial year, or in this administration. It is indeed sounds so great, and I'm hoping that this indication of the presentation is giving us the light that exactly what are we going to be embarked on, what are the expectations, what we need to focus and understand when we got to a foreign place where we've never, perhaps some of us never been to. But I'm hoping for a good experience that we'll be experiencing after this tour. I think it will. I just wanted to echo that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me greet yourself first, and then the members of the Portfolio Committee and the senior officials that are here today. And thank you very much for the presentation. It was very informative. But Chairperson, I think what I can say is that I think maybe we can encourage, based on the presentation, I think we need to encourage each other in terms of the what you call the engagements that we will be having on that other side. I'm saying this thing because I just heard that there were certain agreements that were done way back about 20, when was it? A long time ago. I forgot the year. But now I'm asking myself why they were not implemented, especially on the side of agriculture and also on the side of the trade and the focus of agriculture as well. So I'm just asking myself, because now we are dealing with the issues of the employment. Maybe it was not our department at that time. Maybe it was just the presidents that were engaging. But I think when we go this time, we should do better. And then if there are any engagement in terms of the creation of employment, in terms of the trades, in terms of especially the focus on the agricultural sector, I think we will have to work very hard to make sure that when we come back and then we try and implement and we make it a point, it must link with our system, our way of doing things, and especially with the lab program. Maybe this at all came at a very correct time, at the right time. So I don't know why. Maybe somebody can explain to me why does it take so long to have amateur trades with Brazil, and also to export and whatever importance of that trade. But now at the same time, when a Chairperson, as much as it is the case, what did I want to say? No, it's fine. Let me just leave it at that, and then we'll engage further. The last one, I just want to check if tomorrow I was supposed to take a jab, but I won't be here. I forgot that I've got a program that I have to do in Northwest. So is it possible to can extend, maybe do it next week? Will I still be will I still be on time? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mbele. Honorable Zungula, I see your hand now. Honorable Zungula.
Morning, Chair. Morning to my colleagues, members, and everyone on the platform, support staff. Firstly, thank you for the presentation. I think it helps a great deal when it comes to understanding the country we are going to, particularly on the sides of how do we engage and what is deemed to be acceptable, especially when it comes to interactions. I've got a few questions. The first question is, perhaps, in our Parliament, our engagement, even though there is the decorum in which it is expected, but sometimes not to appear as if we are fighting or there's political contestation. But sometimes when we're discussing issues, maybe there will be different political views or views on how the issues of trade, issues of geopolitics, which in our stay in Brazil with our respective counterparts, we may find each other not necessarily agreeing or having the same views as them on their side. So I want to check in terms of how then is that managed, in the sense that Brazilians, people who easily take offense when you've got a different view, no matter how politely you may express that view, or is it a case whereby they only take offense when the tone of your engagement appears to be condescending or aggressive? That's the first issue. Maybe on the other issue would be, if we're to get the program to have the sense of who are we engaging, institutions, the type of meeting, I think that will also assist in terms of the packing, ensuring that we have appropriate clothes for us to be able to prepare for our engagement there. And then the last thing, when it comes to the jabs, I know the yellow fever, it is compulsory, and then the others, it is recommended. So I wanted to check, because it is recommended, a person will be able to get in the country, not have issues if the recommended vaccines are not taken, or is it a case whereby even though they are not, compulsory, but there may be some instances whereby it's an unspoken rule to say, even though it's not compulsory, but you need to take it. I just wanted to ask those few questions. Thank you.
Any other question, honorable members, or comment? I think as I give back to Ms. Sonjika, Honorable Lukwil, before I raise the point I want to raise.
Okay. No, Chair, thank you very much, and greetings to you and to the DERCO delegation and colleagues. Now, my issue, Chair, is we had everything in terms of the environment and the ethical conduct and the culture as to how Brazilians conduct themselves. But I would like to check in terms of the safety of the delegation that will be there, where we are going to be hosted, how safe it is, and what will the DERCO provide to us as members, and guidance. Also, the language barrier. They are speaking Portuguese. Some of us, we are typical Tswana girls, and we have not yet been to the level of understanding international languages. What is it that the DERCO will provide to us, so that when we engage, first, we don't tamper with the temper of the people that we are visiting, And as how we speak our English, will it be properly translated in a manner in which will be understood for both parties? Lastly, Chair, when you travel abroad, some of us, I only eat bogobe ba ting. What is it that is expected? We might not, that we can't find ourselves eating some things that will make us to remain in Brazil whilst other team are coming back. So what is the common, what do you call it in English, dish? The common dish that is taken there, and preferably as DERCO, what do you would advise us to take to avoid other things that may hamper with our health conditions? Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Mkwele. I think from the questions asked, I will ask Ms. Sonjika to respond to those that relates to the unit, and I'm sure committee support, in particular on those matters of logistical support, you'll be able to talk to those in terms of arrangements for jabs and so on. But let me then give Ms. Sonjika to come in.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the members for raising the issues. I will start with, I think I've noted the various questions, and I will respond in line with what was raised. And then I think there was a first question about the study tour on its own. The committee colleagues will be in a better position to explain. And then there was an issue about the tour and the admin around the tour. I think that as well. The issues of question 3 was also around the issues of the dress code. The dress code would be your business attire, like a suit, the way you dress when you come to the house, what is acceptable in business because you're meeting your counterparts or any other entities, maybe NGOs or companies, whatever the case might be, or a labor relations organization. So it's still the same. There was an issue, Chair, of bilateral agreements between South Africa and Brazil. What we will do, we will request a detailed background document from DERCO, and DERCO will be in a position to also give you agreements that have been signed between South Africa and Brazil and the status thereof. I think that would be very important for the committee to have. I think also, Chair, it's going to be very crucial. I did discuss with Zorani briefly that they need to make an arrangement for the committee to be briefed fully by the embassy. And the importance and significance of that is that you will then get the real issues and you'll be taken into confidence because security, safety, I'm starting with the last question, but I'll come back to the others. Touching on the issue of safety and security, the embassy is in a better position on the ground to say to you, be careful of A, B, C. I'll give an example. If you are in Joburg, they'll be able to say it's good to go to Sentin, but ABC, be careful. Or if you go to Soweto, mind ABC. So that kind of information you deserve to be given. And the ambassador, currently it was indicated there's a vacancy, but I'm sure there is a charge, which is the acting ambassador, or any colleagues in the political desk and corporate desk will be there to take you through so that you're comfortable. The timing of that briefing, Chair, it depends on the committee. There are two options. Lately, with the presiding officers, what we had recommended is it's best to try and facilitate that briefing before you leave, so that you don't get there and you get advice that you will not be able to prepare yourself before you leave South Africa. So we can opt for that, request a briefing with the embassy via Zoom, and then members can be okay to raise whatever questions they have. Then the other question, let me check the note quickly. Okay, I think the other issue was the issue of representation by delegations of Parliament. It is a rule of thumb in the institution that when members visit any country, they represent the country and guided by the country's foreign policy at a strategic level. That's the first level. And members will then, because you are meeting your counterparts, and in the delegation that you may be meeting, there will also be members of different political parties. I think your chair will be best placed also to respond to this one, but it is permissible that you may raise questions. I'll give a recent example. The speaker and the chair met with a delegation from Canada. It's called the Canada-Africa Association, and the members of that delegation were from different political parties, and they would introduce themselves and indicate, I am from this particular political party, and I've got this question. So it's managed, but in broad terms, the representation is about the country and guided by the foreign policy educated. The program, the committee support can guide that, but behind the support, and I will look at the program and I will advise as to how best the program could be managed. The issue of inoculation, which is a yellow fever or recommended, I strongly recommend that the committee support should consult our Parliament doctor who will guide, because we all have different comorbidities, maybe I'm diabetic or I'm asthmatic, and they may recommend that you take the recommended vaccine. So maybe let's use the doctor to guide. And for the members who will not be in Cape Town, the alternative that you have, you may go to a clinic and then you keep your invoice and you claim back. That's what we normally do as International Relations and Protocol of Parliament when members cannot be in Cape Town. But please try and do all your jabs before, within the required time frames. That's what is important. The issue of interpretation, Chair, it's important that the committee support should consult our embassy in Brazil, and so that you can check and control, because let me also indicate to the members, DERCO is there to guide, meaning the embassy, but in terms of the budget, it will have to come from the committee. So we need to do it here, let them check. It would be advisable to have an interpreter with you, who is with you, but preferably guided by the embassy, because they have their own people on the ground for whatever safety and security reasons that they would prefer to use for you. I hope I've covered, Chair, all the issues. Okay, I wanted to raise two issues, Chair. My parting shot. One, Chair, it's going to be a courteous of the delegation to also extend an invitation to your counterparts. They must consider visiting South Africa because you've been there. I'm sure they have an interest. So it's polite to say, we're inviting you to come to South Africa, and then you host them at your convenient time. No? The other issue I wanted to say to members, you are going there with a specific or peculiar focus. However, you are members of Parliament, you deal with rules of engagement in Parliament. They will ask you about any other issue. Be ready. They will ask you about the NSOP. They will ask you about your committees and your role of members, the issue of ethics, code of conduct, etc. So just be ready to interact at different levels as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Sunjita. Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Chair. I missed this point. Before you go, Ms. Sonjika, you made mention of the low rate of women in the parliaments. Is there any cultural aspect to it when it comes to the role of women participating in parliaments, in such deliberations, etc.? so that we may be aware of. I know, for example, when you go to countries in the Middle East, there's some expectations of women in terms of dress code, in terms of if you are greeting someone in the opposite sex, you need to there's some cultural imperatives there. So I wanted to ask the women aspect of things so that we may be aware in terms of how do we as the male members of the delegation approach that aspect. And also I think if there's any cultural aspect, it would also equip the female delegation of the female delegation to also understand the culture around women in Brazil. Thank you.
Honorable Mukwele.
No, thanks, Chair. To add on what Honorable Zungula has alluded, also we need, yes, we heard that you need to be somehow wearing cooperative kind of. So if Mama Sonchiga responder must also indicate to us as women as to preferably is it permissible also to wear trousers in terms of the culture and the conduct, and how best can us women, because we can see there is some discrepancies there, how do we conduct ourselves also? We must not find ourselves thinking that we are in South Africa, all is well. We don't see gender as an issue. On the other hand, there in terms of the cultural practices, gender becomes an issue. I just wanted to add on that, Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Sonjika, if you can quickly come in.
Thank you, Chair. And noted the comments from the member. I have no specific response on the low rate of women in Parliament, but I could not miss it because it's glaring. It may be based on their historic patriarchal system, but it's a question that I think I'm noting for our embassy to also give more insight. Maybe they are there, then they will know that no, it's because of the reasons APC. I don't have a direct response, Mr. Tugula, on that one, sorry. But I mean, if you look at the trend across the world, a country like Rwanda, for example, has got more women in parliament, and Brazil. So meaning it tells you that predominantly the political system has been dominated by men and less women. And the fact that they've never had a speaker as a woman, and in the world over, no speakers are women currently. But I will get the embassy to brief us on this particular issue through you. Then the issue of the dress code, they are a relaxed in terms of the religious issues. You don't expect it's not a Muslim country, one. So but it's business like. You can wear your slack suit, you can wear your pants, but we always say in terms of protocol, there is an expectation when people meet members of parliament, you expect it to be formal, you know, and you can also wear your traditional clothing if you want to wear your.
I want to wear my overalls.
Sorry, okay, ma'am.
That's now breaching the protocols already. Miss Sanjita is on the platform. Allow it to respond.
You didn't expect that one, sir. Thank you. So it's basically your formal way, like when you go to a meeting, a suit. You can wear your pants, yes, you can wear your pants, but it's very important that you dress in a manner that befits your stature because you expected to be honorable. I think that's the best way to answer it. I hope I've covered ma'am on that one. Thank you, Chair. Over to you.
No, thank you, Ms. Sonjeka. We should really thank you for responding quickly to our request. Given the changes we've had on the program, and you were ready to come help us, and I think it's important that it's happening long before we leave. We now know that there would be a need, I think members will agree, that we still have to have that further briefing with the embassy to address these other questions where there's still uncertainty. Yes, you'll also be doing the background work or decide to get further information from the embassy. But like I said, the other matters really would be that of the committee support staff to respond to when they give us the update on the logistical support that's being done for members, and as they do so, surely they would have then noted these other questions that may need to be responded to. Otherwise, I think for me the bottom line is that we are going outside the country representing an institution called Parliament, which is indeed in the context of our country a multi-party system. But representing such an institution, we subject ourselves to what that institution stands for. So even when we raise our views, we'll raise them understanding that at the end, the bottom line is that we're still members of Parliament from South Africa, and whatever we do reflects also the country. So that's important from what I pick up in the presentation, that you don't censor people, but everything we do, remember, it comes back to how the country relates to the diplomatic issues that are involved in that score. With that having been said, like I said, we really thank you for making time in the short notice that has been given, and we hope you will give this support throughout as we go, and probably post, so that we also share experiences from what we picked up from the study tour. Thank you. We'll release you if you need to. Otherwise, because meetings are open to the public, you can stay if you want to. So in that score, I would want us to get back then to the agenda as I outlined. So Mr. Sakasa, as you flag the agenda, I take it that we will be dealing with the minutes of the 18th of February. Once we have dealt with the minutes, like I've outlined, we'll then get just a briefing on the logistical and side from the committee support with regard to the study tour. Honorable Mbele, on what point did you raise?
No, I'm not raising any point of order, Neche. But I need to mean ingathi nikhohliwe question yami ukuthi.
Your hand is.
Sorry?
I'm saying when I ask on what point are you rising is because you have got a hand up.
Okay, or no, I'm sorry, Che. No, I think nikhohlwe ukungiphendula bengibuza ukuthi because tomorrow it seems like I won't be able to go and take e-jab. So will it be possible to postpone the next week, or will I be late now?
Okay, Honorable Mbele, I thought that there was a response in this regard. The response was that if you happen not to be in Cape Town, you can be able to do it in a clinic, wherever you are, then present the invoices in that score. It's unless then that would have not suited your arrangements in that scope, but that was the response. I'm not sure if Ms. Sonjika is still here on the platform. I thought that was the response he gave, but Ms. Sonjika, if you would want to clarify, you can do that, but I understood you to be responding to it in that fashion.
Precisely, Chair, I did say. And secondly, Chair, Ubuzolani can also contact our Parliament doctor just to get a sense if MEM can do it next week. If not, the clinic in Northwest would be ideal so that she's within the required times. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Portia and Mr. Sakase will be at least giving the support to Honorable Mbele for further clarities in this regard. With that having been said, like I said, we really appreciate Mr. Njika that you've been able to respond. I will now move to the minutes of the 18th of February, which is the next item. Very important to look at that page in terms of members who were present in the meeting so that the other process later gets to be quite simple. Now on page 2, with the opening remarks, as well as the briefing from UIF on quarter 1 and quarter 2, on that page. On page 3, the briefing by compensation fund on quarter 1 and quarter 2. We're now moving to closure of that meeting on page 3. And page 4, I then check if there's anyone I may have not seen that wanted to make any correction. I didn't see. So with that, can I then get a mover and seconder from those who were present in the meeting? Honorable Nkopane.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. This is the true reflection of the minutes of our meeting of the 18th. I therefore move for the adoption of these minutes. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Nkopane moves. Honorable Slepe, what?
I second the move of the minutes.
Okay, Honorable Slepe seconds. Honorable Mbele, is that an objection?
No, I was seconding as well. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So the minutes have been moved and seconded, and there's no objection in us adopting the minutes, and the minutes are therefore duly approved by the committee. As I said, committee support, if you can just update us if there are any updates, including in a way responding to some of the questions that would have been raised, just to indicate that from the side of your preparations. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning to my members once more and my colleagues. Chair, sorry, can you hear me? Oh no, what happened now? Can
Yes,
you hear me, Chair?
Can hear you.
Can you?
Zola?
Okay, quickly, Chair, I'm going to respond to just two two things that Ms. Sonjika also mentioned. One, the question of interpreter. In our financial application, Uposhia also has included an interpreter which will be with the committee throughout the meetings. All the meetings that will be arranged, there will be an interpreter because it is actually costed in the financial application. But basically in the other spheres, like let's say outside meetings, we won't have that person. But we will have a designated interpreter in all the meetings that we'll be having. That's one. Two, Chair, on the question of the draft program, which Mr. Zungula requested that we have, we are busy with, we do have just an idea based on the concept paper, what stakeholders and what parliamentary committees that we'll be meeting with, but we still depend on the mission, on the embassy to arrange and confirm those meetings. So we cannot have as yet a program that says on this day we'll be meeting with this stakeholder, on this day we'll be meeting with this labor committee, but we have those idea. So we are waiting on them to say we have managed to secure a meeting with this stakeholder, with this committee, etc. Which I hope, Chair, sooner they will be able to give us that, Chair. Although they did indicate that they will be busy with the presidential state visit that is coming, but I hope, because we still communicate with them via email, and we are on a daily basis. So basically those are the two things that I wanted to mention, but then the rest, Chair, with regards to vaccines and an update on the logistics, I'll request Portia to quickly do that, Chair, through you, Chairperson.
Yes, Ndabeni. Yes, Ndabeni.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson and members and colleagues. Chair, on my side, logistical arrangements are almost at the final stage. Flights have been confirmed, and I've been having a bit of a challenge there. I'm struggling to get one member confirmed for the flights. But we are working on it together with the travel agency. That's why I was late on the meeting this morning. I also have one member that we have not booked flights for because we're still waiting for a copy of the passport. The travel agency is unable to issue tickets without a copy of the passport. And with regards to accommodation, everything is confirmed. Also confirming the interpreter is still in process. And coming to the question about vaccination for Ms. Mbele, according to the information that I also shared on the group, they advised that the vaccine should be done at least 10 days before the arrival date in Brazil. If Ms. Mbele would like to reschedule her appointment, then I will be able to assist with that with the clinic. She must just indicate if she will do it here in Cape Town. That's all from my side, Chair. I'm not sure if I've covered everything. Thank you.
That is it, honorable members. That's the update. Unless you want to get any clarities or want to clarify something, I'm sure Honorable Mbele, now your question has been responded to comprehensively, in that you now will exercise the options. If my calculation is correct, by the 10th, you should have done so. For a 10-day period. So if it's earlier than that, you may want to do it here or in Northwest. May I just check if there are no further clarities, honorable members? We'll just get an update continuously so that we are sure everything is tight, as most of us will be going to that space for the first time. So we really have to be sure, including this part about security. Should be very sure. Right, and the part about the interpreter now, we'll just check also the support from the agency, from the embassy itself, in terms of the movement around, because that language barrier will still be an issue there. For some of us. Is that Committee Secretary? Or is it Ms. Ndabeni?
Thank you, Chair. It's Ms. Ndabeni. So just one more important thing I forgot to mention, just as a reminder to members that have not submitted their travel insurance forms. Since the dates changed, they also need to be updated. I know there are members that submitted with the initial dates, then the dates changed. I would like to request members to update the forms and send them through to me, please, as soon as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Slepe.
My apologies. I just want to get the clarity on this one. Perhaps I was not in the meeting. I know nothing about the travel insurance. I don't know whether it was communicated to where I was not part of that meeting. Can I perhaps get the briefing?
It's on my side, or you are done, Honorable Slepe. I just saw you muted.
I'm done, sir.
I think the point that been made, so Honorable Zungula, I see your hand. You're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. My proposal would be if Sis Posh can maybe communicate directly with the members. I know it's a lot of work, but if there's that individual focus to say, this is what outstanding on your side, it's the travel insurance, it's your passport, it's this, it's that, I think it will make our lives much easier instead of a case where, as we are engaging here, I might not know personally what is outstanding on my side. I just wanted to propose that. Thank you.
No, that's fine, honorable members. Those would be dealt with members indeed directly. So this includes Honorable Mbele's one. It's a matter she would, as I said, decide on and then engage with Portia and other committee support members in that scope, depending on the need. But as I said, we'll just be briefed generally on the updates with regard to logistical support for the collective. If we are, I take it, Honorable Zungula, that it's a legacy one now. Yes, so at the end, we can get some closure on the matter. I take it that, honorable members, we are on track, and in that way, we should move towards closure as we have dealt with the items that were on the agenda, which has created the space for us to be at least updated. With that, let me take the opportunity to thank you for also the understanding in terms of changes in the program, and that we can be able to adapt to those changes and still be able to do some work in between. And if we keep it like that, surely the committee would also keep up with speed on matters that arise. With that, thanks, honorable members. The meeting stays adjourned.
Have your say. The Standing Committee on Finance and the Select Committee on Finance invite stakeholders and interested parties to submit written submissions on the fiscal framework and revenue proposals that will be tabled together with the 2026-2027 budget on Wednesday, 25 February 2026. The Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Related Matters Act, Act number 9 of 2009, defines the fiscal framework as follows. The framework for a specific financial year that gives effect to the National Executive's macroeconomic policy and includes estimates of all revenue, budgetary and extra-budgetary specified separately, expected to be raised during that financial year. Estimates of all expenditure, budgetary and extra-budgetary specified separately for that financial year. Estimates of borrowing for that financial year. Estimates of interest and debt servicing charges. And an indication of the contingency reserve necessary for an appropriate response to emergencies or other temporary needs, and other factors based on similar objective criteria. Submissions must be directed to the committee secretaries, Mr. Allen Wickham and Mr. Panya for the Standing Committee on Finance, and Mr. Nkululeko Mangweni for the Select Committee on Finance via email at awicom@parliament.gov.za, tsepanya@parliament.gov.za, and mangweni@parliament.gov.za. For further inquiries, please call 083-412-1475 for Ellen Wickham, 071-363-2349 for Tebu Hosipanya, 061-438-9448 for Nkululeko Mangweni. Copies of the fiscal framework and revenue proposal will be available on 25 February 2026 at www.treasury.gov.za and at www.parliament.gov.za. Your parliament, your voice, your future.
Welcome to Parliament TV. I am Shlamari Songobeni. This week in Parliament, the tabling of the 2026 budget speech by the Minister of Finance and a ministerial statement by the Minister of Higher Education and Training are scheduled for this week in the National Assembly. The National Council of Provinces has no scheduled sittings as provincial delegates from Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal will be attending the State of the Province addresses in their respective legislatures on Monday and on Friday. On Monday, 23 February, the ad hoc committee to investigate allegations made by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi will meet to discuss housekeeping matters, including the scheduling of witnesses and questions to President Cyril Ramaphosa, among other things. And on Tuesday at 2 p.m., Minister Budimana Mela will brief members of the National Assembly on the post-school education and training sector state of readiness for the 2026 academic year. Ministerial statements in the National Assembly allow a member of the cabinet to inform the House of Government policy, executive actions, or urgent matters of public importance. Ministers request this opportunity from the Speaker of the National Assembly to provide official updates. The ministerial statement will be followed by motions without notice and notices of motions. And on Wednesday at 2 p.m., the Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwana, will present the 2026 budget speech in the National Assembly. During the budget speech, the Minister of Finance outlines how financial resources will be allocated to fund national government's priorities outlined by the President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, in the State of the Nation address. During the same plenary sitting, Minister Godongwana will also introduce the appropriation bill and table the 2026 Division of Revenue Bill, which Parliament will process in the following months. And on Thursday at 8:30 a.m., the National Assembly and the NCOP's programming committees will convene their respective programming meetings to plan for the business of both houses. The meetings will, among other things, consider the draft programs of the two houses, receive committee reports, and consider the bills before each house. The opening of the National House for Traditional and Khoisan Leaders is also scheduled for Thursday morning. And Parliament continues to fulfill its constitutional responsibilities. Much of Parliament's lawmaking and oversight work, which includes public participation and involvement, is carried out through its committees. There are 32 committee meetings scheduled for this week. For the full list of scheduled committee meetings, please visit the website www.parliament.gov.za/committees-schedules. To stay informed about Parliament's program, please visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za and watch Parliament's engagements on all social media platforms using the handle @ParliamentOfRSA. Thank you for watching Parliament TV. I am Shihlamare Songobeni. Goodbye.
What does the right of access to adequate housing entail? Welcome to the Civics Academy Constitutional Rights series. These videos explore some of our constitutional rights and the institutions designed to support and enforce them. In order to assert our rights, we need to know their meaning and what they include. To use our democratic institutions appropriately, we need to understand their mandate and how they function. This video deals with the right of access to adequate housing in Section 26 of the Constitution. What does the right of access to adequate housing include? Section 26(1) and 2 of the Constitution grant everyone the right to access to adequate housing. The state must take reasonable steps within the resources available to it to ensure that over time, more and more people are able to access adequate housing. Section 26(3) states that no one may be evicted from their home or have their home demolished without an order of court. This section prohibits arbitrary evictions. What does this right require the state to do? The right of access to housing does not require the state to provide every person with housing immediately. The right does oblige the state to take reasonable steps within the resources that are available to ensure that more and more people will have better access to housing over time. The state must create conditions that ensure houses can be built and that people who can afford to are able to buy them. The banks play a role in realizing this right. For people who cannot afford to pay for housing, the state must build houses and devise a fair system of allocation. It is illegal to give out houses based on favors or bribes. The state must have a plan to give effect to the right to housing in the long term and must implement it in an effective and efficient manner as fast as possible. The state funds allocated to the building of houses may not be diverted. They must be used for their intended purpose effectively and efficiently. The right not to be evicted without a court order. Section 26(3) of the Constitution protects against eviction without a court order. This rule applies regardless of whether the person is the owner or the tenant. This rule also applies to illegally erected shacks on municipal land or illegally occupied houses. A court will rely on the Prevention of Illegal Eviction from and Unlawful Occupation of Land Act, which is a piece of housing legislation when deciding on whether to grant an eviction order. This act protects the people from unlawful evictions and requires the court to consider a number of factors. For example, whether proper notice of proceedings was given to the tenant. But the court will also consider other factors. Firstly, People should not be evicted if it will render them homeless. Usually, the court will ask whether the relevant authority, usually the municipality, will provide temporary alternative accommodation to those facing homelessness. The state's duty to provide alternative accommodation applies when the state or private landowners evict people. Secondly, people facing eviction should be given a meaningful opportunity to participate in resolving the matter. This means the person or body who wants to evict must speak to those who would be evicted to try and find an alternative solution. This will often involve negotiations between municipal officials, private landowners, communities, and the organizations supporting them. Thirdly, evictions that might lead to homelessness always involve the state, which must provide emergency housing and minimize the suffering that an eviction may cause. Summary. The Constitution guarantees everyone the right of access to adequate housing. This does not entitle everyone to immediately demand a house from the state. Instead, it requires the state to take reasonable steps, including the building of houses, to provide more and more people with housing over time as resources become available. People may not be evicted without a court order, which will only be granted if the court believes that it is just and equitable to do so.
Following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better. Parliament TV, channel 408 on DSTV.
In Parliament's oversight and accountability model, it is stated that Parliament's strategic vision is to build an effective people's parliament that is responsive to the needs of the people, and that is driven by the ideal of realizing a better quality of life for all the people of South Africa. And its mission is to represent and act as a voice of the people in fulfilling Parliament's constitutional functions of passing laws and overseeing executive action. Based on Parliament's vision, it requires accountability, a way of ensuring it is properly managed and a means of guaranteeing that Parliament operates within its constitutional mandate. What is meant by the term oversight by Parliament?
Oversight by Parliament is a constitutional obligation that is there. And essentially what it means is that Parliament must exercise oversight over the executive, meaning Parliament must look at what the executive is doing. Are they doing it in line with the Constitution? Are they doing it in line with the budgets that are there? Are they spending the money according to the priorities that was identified by the government? And also, are they transparent and accountable in terms of what they are doing? Oversight further involves that members of Parliament can ask questions to the executive. It also means that committees can at any stage call a member of the executive to come and explain a matter that is there in the public domain. If something is said about a certain minister, the committee has the right to call that minister to say, Minister, is this true? What is happening here? So oversight means that you monitor the executive action. Now, who's the executive? The executive is cabinet, including the president. Parliament must exercise oversight over the president, the deputy president, and all ministers that are there. So it is monitoring what is they supposed to do, if they are doing it, and how well they are doing it in implementing the executive priorities as articulated by the president after he has met at cabinet.
There are a few reasons why oversight is vitally important to the functions of organs of state. First, It monitors how the taxpayers' money is used, and oversight seeks to improve the efficiency, economy, and effectiveness of government operations. Next, oversight ensures that policies announced by government and authorized by Parliament are actually delivered. This function includes monitoring the achievement of goals set by legislation and the government's own programs. Another reason for oversight is the protection of the rights and liberties of citizens by detecting and preventing abuse of power, wasteful spending, as well as illegal and unconstitutional conduct on the part of the government and public agencies. Ultimately, oversight is exercised to improve the transparency of government operations and enhance public trust in the government.
Oversight is what will make members of executive and leadership of state-owned entities to come to account in the institution called Parliament. And that's what will also speed up service delivery. For an example, if they say in Malamulela, in Guyana, they have built a particular road or a bridge, they are presenting it in Parliament in a PowerPoint by a provincial government or a national department for that matter. But for members of Parliament to look at the PowerPoint, it's always important for them to go to the ground so that they see whether what is on PowerPoint in terms of being beautiful and being this good bridge that is assisting ordinary people, when you get to the ground, is going to be as you have seen it on the PowerPoint that has been presented. So it's very important because it's assisting us to make people that are supposed to be accounting to account, and to make the people that we represent, as and when they have those challenges, to always make it a point that they get their assistance, because members of executive will be accounting in Parliament.
The Constitution of South Africa mandates legislative organs of state to scrutinize and oversee executive action, together with the implementation of laws, the application of the budget, and the strict observance of statutes and the Constitution. An important element of oversight is that it entails overseeing the effective management of government departments by individual members of cabinet in pursuit of improved service delivery for the achievement of a better quality of life for all citizens. The oversight cycle begins right at the beginning of the year, when the President delivers the State of the Nation address. The State of the Nation is a summary on the commitments the government is making to the people of South Africa. 2 weeks later, the Minister of Finance delivers the annual budget speech, which allocates funds to the commitments prioritized by the President in the State of the Nation address. Next, once the parliamentary process begins at the National Assembly and National Council of Provinces, there are budget vote debates where each member of the executive details how they plan to allocate and spend the budget allocated to them by the Minister of Finance. Members of Parliament follow this process and look at the implementation of the budget and initiatives in each department to ensure it is carried out. Part of the oversight process includes question sessions in Parliament to the President, the Deputy President, and the different ministers. Additionally, members of Parliament can step outside of Parliament and investigate the progress of projects set out by government departments. This can be done through oversight visits, taking Parliament to the people, or Local Government Week, amongst other programs. The Auditor General is also part of the oversight process, monitoring the expenditure of budget allocated to departments and projects. Parliament has the power under the law and the Constitution to summon anyone to appear before it to answer questions on the spending of public funds. Ministers and government officials are regularly called to appear before committees of Parliament on their work. Should the priorities of a project change and incur changes in the budget as well? For example, money allocated to a specific project is allocated to another where it is needed more urgently for social relief, the committees will follow those changes to ensure the funds are still accounted for and used for the intended purpose.
We have got what we call cooperative governance. In legislatures, in each and every legislation in South Africa, we have portfolio committees. But having portfolio committees, it does necessarily mean that when Parliament want to address a particular issue in a province, they can't do that. They can do that anytime, any date, as long as the planning and coordination and everything is done according to book. But it's not done in a way that will destabilize and disorganize the planning of provinces. That is why even provinces, when we're planning as national parliament, will always extend the invitation to them so that they understand the program. Many times in the past, we have seen the different municipalities being invited to come and account in parliament because there are some issues that are of challenge and want to see what's happening, including different departments. They are called to come, and like now the section 100 in Northwest, there's a legislature that is there, but the constitution is very clear about what can be done by a legislature. It's also very clear what can be done by a national parliament, and that will never be compromised. Everything that we do, we derive it from our own constitution that is guiding us as members of parliament.
Monitoring and evaluating the oversight process is the responsibility of each portfolio committee. And that's why continuity in these portfolio committees are so important. Because if you constantly change members in portfolio committees, it will mean that they don't really know without having been informed or reading what has happened as to what is going to take place. So that is crucial for the committee to follow whatever statement, commitment, or answer a minister says. Because it's the only way in which you can keep them accountable, based on what they have said and based on what they are doing.
Each of the two houses of parliament, the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, establish parliamentary committees to facilitate oversight and monitor the government in terms of the Constitution. These committees are the engine rooms of Parliament's oversight and legislative work. Parliamentary committees scrutinize legislation, oversee government action, and interact with the public. To exercise oversight, parliamentary committees first consider the appropriate means for conducting oversight to cover all organs of state. The committee would either request a briefing from the organ of state or visit the organ of state for fact-finding, depending on the purpose of the oversight. The work of oversight committees can include study visits, involve physical inspections, conversing with community members and stakeholders, assessing the impact of delivery, and developing reports for adoption by committees that contain recommendations for the houses to consider. Committees often obtain first-hand knowledge from people engaged in the direct implementation of specific programs or who are directly responsible for service delivery. To evaluate the work of government from a broader perspective, committees may invite experts from outside government to provide background knowledge and analysis on relevant issues. Once the committee has gathered all the information it requires as part of its oversight process, it must report back to the respective house on matters referred to for consideration. In its report, the committee will state specific recommendations for the matter it has investigated. When a committee reports to the House for a formal consideration and the House adopts the committee report, it gives the recommendations the force of a formal House resolution pursuant to its constitutional function of conducting oversight. The House then also monitors executive compliance with these recommendations. Of course, matters cannot be ongoing indefinitely. When a department presents their annual performance plan, it has clear timelines. When Parliament or a committee adopts its own plan, it will have clear time frames and will align with the relevant department's timeline. By following these timelines, oversight by the committees can see when projects or spending have gone off course and call the relevant member of the executive to discuss why the project and budget has not met a specific target and what plans are set forth to address the issue. Oversight by committees sets out timelines to hold departments to account and ensure that the South African people get the service delivery they expect and rightly deserve from government.
It doesn't matter whether we come from, say, same party. We have got different responsibilities. You are implementing, I am doing oversight out of what you said you'll be implementing. And if you said you will be dealing with the Hollywood vacancy rate in your department, and we gave you clear recommendations that next month when we meet on this particular date, we don't want another acting arrangement. We want to see a department with people that are employed. And when we give you time frame, we're aware about the advert, the screening, the interviews. We are very realistic, and we have done our research as an institution that is doing oversight. But if you come back after 6 months, they are still telling us the old story. That is why sometimes it will be headline news and say members of a committee were not satisfied even about the explanation. Sometimes, many a times, of course, you won't even understand if you are not told that these members, they will speak one language when there are some challenges, condemning what is wrong and criticizing, of course, in a very fair way where they see there are some serious challenges, and if they're going to keep quiet, things are going to go haywire, and it's their responsibility as members of parliament. But sometimes there are some instances, of course, where you might feel that the criticism is not justified. Probably we're not realistic in terms of what we are expecting a department to do and a member of executive to do, and there will be those different voices. And once they do that in a way that will always make them to understand that as a committee that is part of an institution called parliament, at the end of the day, they have to go to the house and present their report. And when they are presenting their report, it's a report of a committee. It's not a report of a political party or a report of some few members, but the entire committee.
There are oversight mechanisms that are routine and regularly exercised, such as committee hearings and question sessions. Questions sessions may involve ministers appearing before the Houses of Parliament to provide oral responses to questions by members, or it may entail providing written answers to written questions. Members of Parliament can also make statements in the House on any matter. A member of any political party can also give a notice of a motion to bring up issues for debate in Parliament. Plenary debates are another way to bring important information to the attention of the government regarding specific government programs or legislation required to improve service delivery. Members of Parliament may also conduct constituency work, which offers a great opportunity for individual oversight and offers close interaction between MPs and the public. Unfortunately, these oversight rules and guidelines aren't always adhered to, and action is taken when the process of oversight is not honored or respected.
A lot of things that can be done to members of executive. The first one, like in terms of the rules of parliament, both National Assembly and National Council of Provinces. If a member of executive is supposed to come to respond to questions, there's a time frame that you can respond up to this date. After this date, then it means you have defied the rules. And the first punishment that will be done to that particular member of executive is that when you come to the house to answer questions, instead of sticking to 6, we'll be adding those questions. So it's a punishment because it goes beyond the normal working hours, and being there answering questions, we will be having 4 follow-ups and there are more than 6. it's a tiresome exercise and it's a serious punishment. It's part of a punitive measure dealing with the executive. The other one, you have got a leader of government and business. The leader of government and business, it means from time to time, as and when members are not responding to questions or there are things that have been recommended, members of executive are not doing those things. And then the speaker and the chairperson can write to the leader of government and business and say, there are things that have been recommended by these committees or by parliament, and this member of executive hasn't attended to those issues. So can you advise about what actions will be taken about this member? The last resort is when you will have members that will go to extreme, even though it's not part of their powers. Of course, you'll have members of parliament saying a particular member of executive must be removed. But the appointment and disappointment is not something that can be done by a parliament. That's a constitutional power vested to the president. So it's only the president that can do that. But there's nothing wrong saying it. Probably sometimes you'll say it only to find that the president will end up doing it, whether it's a coincidence or whatever, but as long as you have exposed where there are some serious challenges.
Currently, in terms of the new rules that is being developed, and also in terms of the high-level panel report that is there, and also the oversight and accountability model, the speaker, after a committee have said, look, we've given up. We've done everything the way it was supposed to be done. We're not getting the necessary information. The minister can be sanctioned, but that is the power of the speaker, where the committee will say, we want this minister to be sanctioned. What in a political environment also happens is it's got political consequences for the minister, for that individual who occupy that office. And it could be that the president have a look at it and doesn't think kindly as to what is happening, and he may decide to make certain changes. Or the minister will respond to the speaker and say, but speaker, I've explained to this committee, this is actually what the problem is. It's out of my hands. And through that, the communication takes place. We try to encourage a positive working relationship between committees and ministers to ensure that there's not an unnecessary standoff between the two, because it's in the interest of Parliament and also the executive for things to work and to be implemented, because ultimately it is to ensure a better life for our people. We have not found really that the minister will get to the point to say that I'm a member of the executive, it's not Parliament that appointed me, it's the president. In such a case, it becomes a issue for the ruling party, the majority party, to deal with, and for engagement between the head of the institution of the National Assembly, in this instance the speaker, to engage the president on the matter. But the minister can't just be dismissive and say, you haven't appointed me, so you can't do anything to me.
Oversight in Parliament is not limited to members of Parliament and members of the executive. The public are also invited to be part of the process, and their participation is a crucial element of oversight.
The public are the ones who are the recipients of the services that comes from the government. And as recipients of the services of government, they have a crucial role to play in terms of oversight. That means they must constantly be aware of the services that government are supposed to deliver and what they are getting. If people are supposed to get social relief and they're not receiving it, then they are the first ones who should raise the flag and say there's a problem here. Or if a school was to have been built in a certain area, or a university should have been built, and it is not done, the people in that area are the first to see that this is not being done. And in that way, they exercise oversight. Or now that we have the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide, you have a situation where the minister or the president will make pronouncements to say, this is what women should do. This is the protection that they receive. So they are first in line of the oversight. When they go for that service to say that, no, but this is not what the president has said, or the minister of police have said. And then that matter must be escalated through the different manners in which we were speaking, submissions,
to a committee, writing a letter to a committee, or then a petition, or go to the Member of Parliament's office and say, you know how badly I was treated when I went there on a certain day by the police. And that should then trigger a response from that specific portfolio and ministry to see to it that our people get the proper services that they deserve.
Public participation and oversight can happen in one of two ways: by submission or by petition. Making a submission to a committee is one way of making your voice heard in Parliament. Every citizen also has the right to petition Parliament, as provided for in the Constitution. A petition is a formal request to an authority for action. It can assume the form of either a demand, a request, or the redress of a grievance.
Definitely, a member of public can be involved. Like when we prepare questions through the constituency office, through different members of parliament, when we engage members of public, whether it's taking parliament to the people, whether it's a local government week, whether it's a provincial week, then a member of a public can come to me about an issue and say, there's this issue. I can decide to write a question to that relevant member of executive to respond in writing. I can decide to say, no, it must be for oral reply. I am assisting the member of the public.
Oversight exists to protect the rights and liberties of citizens by detecting and preventing abuse of power, wasteful spending, as well as illegal and unconstitutional conduct on the part of the government and public agencies. Ultimately, oversight is exercised to improve the transparency of government operations and enhance public trust in the government.
You have people that are feeling that not much has been done in terms of assisting them, and there are those that are saying there are things that are being done properly, but that is may there will always be room for improvement to make sure that let's have a situation where you will have a tiny minority that will be dissatisfied, but will be celebrating the day. You will have a majority that will be saying our issues are attended to, Parliament is playing its role in terms of the Constitution, and we are satisfied. But that can only be done if we pump more resources to where we're expected to.
Oversight is the domain of Parliament. It's the domain of the legislatures. It's a domain also of your different municipalities. And it is the responsibility of those members who are not part of the executive at any three of those levels to exercise that constitutionally mandated function. It cannot be outsourced to anyone else.
Whether Parliament is successful in effectively holding the executive accountable will ultimately depend on the extent to which committees and individual members of Parliament